Welcome to Damsels in Dialogue, a podcast dedicated to female protagonists in fiction, film, and the stage. Co-hosted by India Marie Paul
and Katie Zetter. Here at Damsels in Dialogue, we support the LGBTQ+ community and all women because trans women are women.
For our second season, we have wands at the ready and we'll be discussing the women of the wizarding world. This episode, for our final witch, we are discussing the lead heroine of the Harry Potter series and our favorite know-it-all, Hermione Granger.
All right, friends, ladies, gentlemen, them, theys, non-binaries. It is our last sponsored episode of season 2. So if you haven't been here before, we understand that talking about the wizarding world and the magic during spooky season will behoove you to want to purchase some magical merch. And we would just like to direct you to some fun small businesses to support instead. So today, our final sponsor for this last episode of the podcast is the Hazel Society, magically inspired apparel that is made to order. You can check them out on Instagram at Hazel Society Shop and enjoy all their spooky fun merch that is very magical. And I did know on their Instagram they have some really cute sweaters, which would be really good for the season. But yes, thank you so much for sponsoring our last witch.
Yes, we're so excited to have you. It's all so pretty, and you definitely should check them out. You know, presents are going to need to be had soon as well. So,
well, today we dive into Hermione Granger. Woo! All right, before we dive into her, I wanted to ask you a question because of the Golden Trio, the three main characters of the story, Harry's two best friends and himself, they all go on big journeys, obviously, but in my opinion, Hermione changes the most in the books. In the movies, not so much. But in the books, I feel like she has such a bigger change and arc than the boys do, particularly because of book one.
That's fair. That's fair.
If that makes sense.
It does. It does. I'm trying to think through, like, I think Ron has a lot of, like, growing up that he does.
They totally all have some good stuff.
Yeah. I think thinking about the books and the first few books and where she jumps to, I think at the end of the series, she doesn't change as much. I really think it's that transition.
She settles into herself and she gets there.
Yeah. I think you're right.
When we meet her.
Yeah, from book one, like the first 4 books, there's kind of like a gradual like peak up, I think, of change, and then it levels out. I think you're right. I think she figures herself out, and then
she's solid.
Yes, but the first, rereading
this first
them,
one, she has the biggest jump in the first book.
Yeah, it's rereading the series, seeing where she starts. I was almost shocked. Thinking of like the movies, and I knew those a little bit better.
You work for that good Hermione reading that book. You work for her because she is such a snot and a brat at the beginning.
The first few books I went, oh, okay. I guess we're starting here. I have a lot of feelings. But yeah, that first book was rough for her as a character. Like it was hard to like her and to want her to be a part of the bigger journey in book one.
And Ron really helps, which is so funny. There's moments where Ron like makes her cry because one of his biggest faults is also one of his biggest strengths. He is very quick-witted and has a very sharp tongue, which can make him highly entertaining and funny or incredibly hurtful. Luna says it the best. Listen to our Luna podcast. So there's moments where he makes her a little more endearing because he will think of her as a human, especially later in the book. But like the beginning of it, it's like when you meet her, you have the famous opening where they're all on the train and she sits down and she's like, oh, we're doing magic. Let's see, Let's see. Like it's like right away, she's already dressed. She's looking for Neville's toad. But it's very her. And that part was very whimsical because you didn't really get to know her yet. I know that sounds bad, but like you didn't get to know her yet. Like just, you saw these like snippets of this like intelligent, like I've already read all the course books. Like, haven't you? Weird.
Yeah. She could have been a villain. Like she could have been an antagonist character just by that introduction.
Right. Is this like a sweet girl trying to help this guy? Or is she going to be
annoying the entire series? Like be that person.
You don't know. You truly don't know. And I think that was a really cool introduction. for her. And something they added in the movies is when you meet her, Ron has something on his nose and she tells him. And then in the movies, at the end of the series, she has something on her face.
That's cute.
That he fixes. Yeah.
That's real cute. I like that.
Yeah. Going back to Just Hermione.
Yes. Yeah.
After that beautiful opening where you're like, who is this girl?
Yeah.
She immediately gets annoying.
Yes, she does. She does. And it's hard to feel sorry for her. It's someone who just who tries too hard.
I think as a kid, when you read it, you don't unpack that.
Yeah.
So you're just like, oh, she's annoying. Yeah. But as an adult reading it, you're like, oh my gosh, this poor girl is not. Now this is not from Harry and Ron's point of view. This is like you as an adult,
reader,
like analyzing it as a reader. Yeah. But it's like, okay, this girl is a muggle, was a muggle, thought she was, learned about this whole world, and we hear nothing about if she ever had friends prior to this. So she may be a loner, or maybe she was always, I'm sure she was always this intelligent and this much of a succeeds at school, which may have outcast her. And now she's further outcast by being literally a decade behind in this world. So she's like desperately trying to prove herself. Yeah. And from like that point of view, there are moments where it's like, okay, I do feel bad for you. Like,
she's trying to fit in. She doesn't have family in this world. She's completely new to it and desperately trying to catch up. And it's probably why she read so much. Like, I'm sure it's her trying to be a part of the world and know about it. And she gets is really anxious to... Well, there's a lot of hints at ambition in her. And a lot of it is... I know she's a Gryffindor, and she talks a bit later about Ravenclaw being considered, but there's a lot of Slytherin tendencies in what she does, especially in the other books, but in the first few books, everything she does is based on getting something out of it. Like there's a want of approval, validation. Glory. She wants the glory for it. The reasoning for not doing something is never, it's the wrong thing to do. It's you'll lose house points. That's the reason.
You'll break the rules.
You'll break the rules. And we'll all get in trouble or we'll get expelled. It's not, this is the wrong thing to do. So there is a lot of ambition in her from the beginning. And I do think it stems from like an anxiety or like a nervousness. Totally. I'm sure she was a know-it-all at her old school too.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it gets heightened when you're added into this magical new world. So that way you do feel bad for her. Like, who hasn't at some point cried in the bathroom? Like, you understand that.
Yeah.
I wish you would have let Parvati and Lavender help her.
Yeah. Can you imagine how different that would have been?
Yeah. It would have been a completely different book series.
I literally wrote down so many times where she tries to act mature, but comes off as insecure and childish instead because she is so nervous. And Parvati and Lavender trying to reach out and her not taking anything from them. She's constantly, and I don't know, I feel like this is unintentional. I feel like she just has no concept of self-awareness and can't read the room because she often does things like, for example, when she's on the edge of her seat, looking desperate to prove that she wasn't a dunderhead. Raises her hand even though someone else was called on. Yeah. You know, that kind of stuff, standing up in the class.
Yes.
Like just being rude. She truly does not realize.
Yes.
That she is being crazy, right?
Yeah,
like,
a lot.
Or being a lot. Right. A lot's a better word, totally.
Yeah.
She's being a lot. She's being a little too much. She is not reading the room, which is so funny to me that she is written as somebody who doesn't understand people at the beginning. But her, to use a D&D term, passive perception is insane. She's almost always the first person to notice things that aren't in direct line of sight.
Yes.
Like noticing the trapdoor under Fluffy when they get locked in there. What?
Yeah.
Girl, you can read the dust on the floor, but you can't read a person. But that, it's good to give her faults.
But well, that's what if you walk into a room and there's a 3-headed dog in the room, I'm not looking at the floor. Some of those moments did feel in the writing like, oh, I need this to happen. We're going to give it to Hermione.
Yes. Mrs. Weasley had this a little bit, but Hermione had the most. And a lot of times it was backed up. You know, there were a lot of times where she brings up Hogwarts history a lot.
Hogwarts history. So many things in that book. It's probably like a huge volume with all the random information that is inside.
That's what I want.
Book.
Like, where's that?
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's like sometimes where it backs it up, but other times where it feels forced. Luckily, this like really high perception thing does read to me as a little more organic because it happens constantly. She always is the one to like visually see things.
Yes.
And maybe it's because she's not as people. She's not as focused on the people in the room.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. There are moments where she has so much insight into what someone else is feeling instead of us getting a scene of the person telling us how they feel. That's when it feels exposition-y and not organic. But yeah, the perception and stuff is just a cool.
Yeah.
Her peripheral is on point.
Right. She is analyzing the room immediately. She is not seeing how you're feeling about it.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Exactly.
We do love that line. After that with the Fluffy and they get back and it's a disaster and she shouldn't have been there to begin with. She was super weird and followed them out. That felt very much like Hermione just needed to be there so she could see things.
Yes.
Because like there was no reason for her to follow them out. Like what on earth would she do if they were all caught out? And she was like, well, I told them not to. Well, you're there too.
You're there too, yes.
But it did give us one of the best lines in the entire series, which is... Well, now I'm going to go to bed before he gets us killed. Or worse, expelled.
Yes. That is, Which is really the worst possible thing for Hermione. And that's consistent. That's pretty consistent up until like the last book. And then then we go to like the death being the worst. But like expelled is the worst possible thing.
Yes.
Which I love. That's a great trait.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
that's so fun.
Yeah.
It keeps her priorities. And honestly, that being her biggest priority makes her so different than Ron and Harry because failing her test is the worst thing that's ever happened to her.
Oh my God, when she gets anxiety over exams multiple times in different books.
Yeah. And that's the worst thing that's ever happened to her. Yeah. It's not Ron who's lost multiple family members to Voldemort.
Yep.
It's not Ron who has piles of family members left to lose.
Yep.
It's not Harry who has no family and is an orphan and lives in an abusive household. They have so much more to lose. And the worst thing that's ever happened to her is, oh no, what if I fail a test? And that does, in a way, make her more relatable in that sense.
Yeah, I don't know what it feels like to be shoved under a staircase my whole life.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't know what it's like to be an orphan. I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be in constant fear and be called being called blood traitors and all these kinds of things. So in that way, she does bring a different sense of reality to the group, which I do enjoy. And it is set very initially because school is like her big thing.
Yep.
And that's why it's so cool when the troll happens. That moment is so powerful for all of them, and I dislike it in the movie. It discredits everyone a lot because the whole point in the books, so for those who haven't watched both, in the books and in the movies, Ron says something a little too loud, one of those moments where he can be mean, and she cries and runs off to the bathroom. That happens in both. Then as they find out there's a troll, they do both run to the bathroom. Now, Ron is the one who goes, oh my gosh, she's in there. We have to go.
Yeah.
They run over there. I think it may be Harry in the movies. And they run in there. And in the movies, Hermione is still like completely with it and talks Ron through the spell.
Yeah.
Leviosa.
Yes.
So she is totally calm. I mean, nervous, but calm, talks him through it, helps him through it, and then goes, they escape. That is not how it happened in the books. And I think how it happens in the movies discredits what they built towards in the books because she did go from, I mean, she's terrible. She's like, I suppose you think it's a reward for breaking the rules, having that broomstick, Harry. Like she's just a stick in the mud. Yeah. The whole time.
Yeah.
She's super just like not reading the room.
Yeah.
Makes people uncomfortable, makes people frustrated. So when in the books, when Harry still jumps on him, sticks his wand up his nose, does all that. But Ron, of his own volition, does that with the Trolls Club and everything and knocks out the troll while Hermione is motionless in fear.
Yeah.
Which is very her. That is like, she is a long-term planner. She is not a quick thinker, and that's fine. They need that in that group. Ron and Harry desperately
someone
need
needs
that.
to plan.
Someone needs to do that.
Yeah.
They are like someone. Yeah, she thinks ahead, and they don't. But that's why she needs them. They are much quicker thinkers.
Yeah.
Last minute, her being so scared, and these two boys coming in and saving her for her to come out of her silence and fear, and the first thing she says is, McGonagall, it was me, and lies to McGonagall. It makes that friendship, it makes that moment of the three of them who know what happened.
Yeah.
To be like, oh my gosh, this is the olive branch.
Yeah. And it gets her somewhere to go. It gets her somewhere to go because she becomes someone who is able to face down some really horrific things.
Yeah.
So to start in the completely petrified before she gets petrified state, that's a really big growth to see in her.
Super big.
Yeah.
And there's this beautiful line at the end of it where it's like after they go home or they go back to their rooms, and then Hermione joined the group after, because that's just what you do after you fought a troll together. You know?
Yeah.
Like it's one of those moments that really pulled them together, and for them to come there and then her to extend the olive branch. I don't know. It like you said, it's a beautiful start to her progression and to the trio starting to use their strengths with each other, because they definitely all have different purposes.
For sure.
In the trio.
And she isn't typically like the frontline fighter as much as she is using spells to manipulate situations or to get around different things or to solve puzzles.
Why Ron is good at chess and she's not.
Yeah.
She sees the big picture way far out, whereas Ron can assess the situation as it's happening.
Yeah. You know? Exactly.
And that's like such a cool dynamic for the friend group.
Yes.
I do enjoy that you start to get to see her a little bit after you don't get a whole lot of her, because the troll, it does take a little bit for that to happen.
Yeah.
It is set up that she goes home for the holidays with them. Yeah, this is where she gave them the Bertie Bott's beans and the chocolate frog.
Yeah.
But still, it's like stuff. She's thinking more of others, and you can see that little bit of like where she's starting to learn how to have friends, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that she also needs other people, because she definitely needed someone to help her in that situation. So I think it's opening herself up to also need others around her,
which is nice. It's she may be so used to, because she's also an only child, which fun fact, she originally wasn't supposed to be. She's supposed to have a younger sister.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah, it was just like literally forgot to write about her and was like, it's too late.
Now she's an only child.
Yeah.
She's written like an only child to
me. She totally is written like an only child.
Yeah.
It totally reads. So her like slowly learning how to be friends is kind of cool. I love that the boys are like, we think it's very good for her that she always loses at chess. That's the only thing she loses at, and that's good for her.
Yeah, I love that they already know like she needs a little failure in her life.
Yeah. And she doesn't ever seem upset about it, which is so interesting to me, because she does get very frustrated very quickly about things that she doesn't just immediately get. But throughout the series, she is seen playing chess with one of them.
Keep trying,
like just casually.
Yeah.
So she's still playing and not frustrated. Yeah. Which, I mean, you're right, boys. I think that is very good for her, because it does get frustrating in some moments later books that we'll talk about. Yeah. That she does get incredibly frustrated to the point of hindering others.
Yes.
That she doesn't get something right away and somebody else does. So I do enjoy that chess humbles her in a great way.
Yes, I agree.
I guess just to finish up book one, because it is pretty short.
These are all short in the beginning here.
I do love, this is something that's not in the movies as well, that is in the books. So in the movies, she does not have really a big thing to do to find the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yes.
They just changed that up a little bit. And I did want to mention some things that I miss that didn't happen. In particular with Hermione. They kept most of Ron's things.
They did, yeah.
But not Hermione's. And I get why. It's not as exciting to watch what Hermione does.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite moments that I had completely forgotten about is when they get down there and the two boys are stuck in the herbology professor's trap.
The devil's snare, yeah.
And so she's trying to think about what to do. And then she's like, oh, light. Fire. I could make a fire, but there's no wood. This is also a beautiful full circle moment, because she says this and Ron literally screams at her. He's like, are you not a witch? Like what? Are you like?
Did you not set a teacher on fire in this book?
Right. Like, what are you doing? Yep. So that is just very funny, because then Ron does it later.
Yeah.
In the end of the books, he does the same thing where he's about to do something and she's like, excuse you.
Yeah.
So that's a cute thing that I was kind of bummed that they put in there.
Yeah.
Or that they took out because it would have taken just as much time.
Yeah.
And that's so funny.
Yeah.
And it reminds you that she's a muggle.
That she's like thinking
she lived in that world.
very muggle wise on how to solve the situation. Yeah.
It makes sense. This is her first, like you said, she has a lot to grow, a lot of things to do to get better at that skill.
Yeah.
And so for this first one to be like her default is muggle life, like that totally makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we miss, which is very cool, and there are very few moments that Hermione is impressed by professors.
Mm-hmm.
She is in awe of them. Do not get me wrong.
Yeah.
She is in awe of them. She will do anything they say. She is so thrilled to impress them.
Yeah.
But there are few times that professors take her breath away for a second. And so after chess, they do leave Ron. They decide that he'll be safe there and there's nothing they can do for him now anyway.
Yep.
They go into the next chamber. There are flames on either side of different colors and a line of bottles. And Hermione deduces that it is a logic test. It has nothing to do with magic.
Yep.
One bottle will take them forward. One bottle will take them back. And Harry's like, oh, can you do it? She's like, oh yeah, of course. Just give me a minute.
Yeah.
And she's like truly in awe. She's like, and this is Snape's thing. And she's like, this is brilliant because so many wizards rely so heavily on their magic that they do not hone their logic skills. And so she was like, this is absolutely brilliant. Yep. And she does. She succeeds. They find out there is only enough to get through the front for like one person, the forward one. So she shows that one to Harry, takes very confidently. The one to go back has plenty, so he'd be able to get back later along with her. And they do that. I understand why they didn't cut it or why they cut it from the movies. It's not that exciting to watch, but I did want to say that in the podcast because I think it's a very cool thing. It's interesting for Hermione. Like in this moment of just like chaos, she's like, wow, this is cool.
Well,
like she nerded about it.
Yeah. And it's really cool because it's a reminder that witches and wizards have a flaw because of their reliance on magic. That she has an advantage by being a muggle for a moment just because she doesn't have all the tricks to get through life. So I think it's a really cool moment to realize that there are other skills you also need in the world other than magic. So I do appreciate that. And it is cool to see her geek out over a puzzle. Like, that's just great. Yes. And it's just a deadly puzzle, which makes it funny because if you take the wrong one, someone could instantly die. They could burn horribly in the flames. Like, there's just so many things could go wrong if she gets this wrong. And she's 11. So, you know.
And she's like, ooh, puzzle. Yeah.
Oh, just potential death ahead of us right now. Ooh, puzzle. It's just great. It's great.
And she has the hug. She hugs him. And like you get to that moment where we are slowly seeing that she's a girl. Yeah. It takes a long time. I know this sounds dumb, but Hermione, and I don't know if this is like the era it was written, but Hermione sometimes comes off as like against being like, feminine,
showing femininity and being a tomboy or rejecting femininity,
right, which is totally fine, but it's nice to see a little bit of that comfortable with hugging them and showing that affection, because she does appreciate them and she the girl gets friends. She hasn't had friends all year.
I do appreciate
and then she
that.
just tops the class.
Well, you know, like you do.
Book one, we see we need it to see how far she comes. Yes. You know, because that is definitely a big setup for her desperately trying to prove herself to finally when we get to that last book where it's not about proving herself. Yeah. And it's just about keeping her friends alive and doing what needs to be done. Yes. Which is a really cool journey.
It is. That's what the books have a much deeper journey than the movies. The movies made her complete right away.
And she had nearly no flaws. Yeah. I mean, both Hermione's I think are great, but these are also two characters. And I say two characters because I truly think they are two separate characters. Yeah. Book Hermione and movie Hermione are not the same person.
I agree. That's I think movie Hermione did not show off her snotty. I think they were afraid of making her so unlikable, but she is in the books. So
but she is. That's the whole thing.
They made her a very likable version of herself and very unflawed, which I mean, when you're working with kid, there's a whole bunch of factors that probably go into that. But I agree. I think they're two very different people. So it is cool to go back and read it and just see how much your initial reaction to her in book one as an adult is like, ooh, I would not have liked you.
Very hard.
Like, oh no. Oh, honey, like calm down.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see her grow. But then in book 2, The Chamber of Secrets, there's a large chunk where she's petrified.
Yes.
It's like Ron's spotlight, you know?
Yeah. They each kind of get a little spotlight in the beginning of these books. And the second one for sure is Ron, and the third one is Hermione. So there still was a decent bit of her at the beginning, but not as much. I mean, we do have her little crush on Lockhart, which cracks me up. So
real
she's not
cute.
Yeah, it's super funny. You know, her not wanting to like give back the note that's signed, or like sending him a Valentine, and like Ron is just like not jealous because I don't think Ron
not
has
yet.
I don't think they have those feelings for each other yet.
Yeah,
but like Ron is just like. Is that really you? Like, are you for real?
What are you doing? Like, it's so, her going through that tween crush on the teacher. Oh, so cute. And it makes her so likable after her first book. So it's...
Right. Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Only thing that bothered me about Lockhart is she was so blind to how... like, she was so ignorant for all his actions. Yeah. And I was like, ooh, girl. Ooh. Yeah.
Which makes for some comedy, but also, like, is a little bit of a stretch for me, for her. At some point...
How much it's... I agree. It's at some point it's too far. Yeah. Something else about this that I did enjoy as well is because so many times we forget that Hermione is Muggle-born because she is so worldly and because the author needs someone to tell them something. Yes. And so Hermione will know it, right? But I did enjoy, now this is different than the movies as well, that I did not like about the movies. In the books, Hermione does not know what the word mudblood means.
Yes.
She does say like it must have been bad because like the way Malfoy said it and like Ron's just like visceral reaction.
Yeah, like how would she know? They're not going to put that in a textbook.
No, in the movies she does. In the movies she does know.
It's more fun to watch her learn that
from Ron.
Yeah.
Yes, and it makes giving that to Hermione takes away how much Ron cares for her before they're even close to being in a relationship. Like this is like pre-feelings. This is my friend.
Friendship,
and
loyalty,
you just said the worst possible thing you could say to her.
And shows that Ron is the expert of the wizard. He has lived it.
Because he
is the
is.
Expert.
Oh my gosh.
He knows what's happening.
Expert.
So yeah, I think that moment in the movies is done an injustice by her knowing what it means.
For sure. But it was nice in the books to see her so innocent and like one of the few moments. It was one of the few moments that she like read the room and was like, let's go.
Yeah. I did enjoy, someone describes her, she is someone that behaves as though she has swallowed a textbook. I think that was a really cute little like description of her.
Fun. Do you have another description? Because I have a description I don't like of her.
Ooh, no, you go. This is a different comment.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Then going off of your description, that one is beautiful. This one, I was a little confused rereading this as an adult.
Okay.
Hermione was written as this like very feminist character trying to break stereotypes. Then why do you keep using the word bossy to describe her constantly?
Yes.
That is a word that we are trying not to use because a strong-willed woman is not bossy. We are just standing up for what we believe in. Like that is not
passionate.
Being bossy.
Yeah.
That is saying I would like what I ordered or that I do whatever.
Yeah.
Like
standing up for yourself is like bossy has come this like negative, almost demeaning characteristic trait as like, oh, you're kind of either crazy or you're it's a really bad word. And I think by then it was still a bad word. Like when this was written.
So.
Yeah.
I think bossy was still like, oh, bossy little girls.
Yeah.
Strong boys, bossy girl, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, why do you keep using that word? So that was kind of disappointing to me.
Yeah.
So I much prefer yours.
Yeah, this just all the textbook. I'm like, that's kind of a cute, perfect description. I love that I just wrote capitals yes. When Malfoy is on the team and she's the one who spouts, no one on the Gryffindor team had to buy their way in.
Yes.
I was like, yes. That
she doesn't get those very often. Yes. Those like quick-witted things. So when she does, you're like, get it, girl.
Yes.
Get it.
And her and Malfoy's relationship is so interesting when rereading the books.
Yes. The amount of Draco Malfoy and Hermione Granger fanfic out there.
There's so much.
There is so much.
Yeah.
It is very, very... But of course, a lot of people when you're young, you put yourself in the shoes of Hermione Granger. You want that, and then you want the bad boy.
Oh yeah, you want the enemies to lovers trope that come out. Yeah.
Yeah, so yes, that is a huge fanfic.
Yeah, because anytime her and Draco come together, he usually calls her a mudblood, and she at some point either ignores that or it's at a bad time because she ends up like hitting him, and it's like there's like so many anytime that they specifically interact, it's really dramatic and biting. So it's a fun world to see the Muggle and the pureblood crash, you know. So that's a fun relationship that has great moments as the story continues.
Well, and their intelligence too.
Yes.
Malfoy, it's insinuated that Malfoy is second in class.
Yes.
There's a lot at stake for Malfoy.
Yeah.
That isn't necessarily at stake for her, but she still rises to the occasion.
Yeah.
And I do love that about her.
Well, can you imagine Draco going home and them realizing a Muggle is first in class?
Oh, they had that conversation.
Yeah, like that's...
They have that conversation in Diagon Alley.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Draco's father talks to him and is like, I'm sorry, you're being beaten by a mudblood?
By her? Yeah. Yeah. Like that tension is good. That's good conflict anytime that they come together in the series. But I did like her little biting remark to him.
like it a lot. I like it a lot. I also enjoy in this book that's not in the movies, and I get it. Binns would have been boring in the movies.
Yes.
I get it.
Yeah.
But she does talk to Binns, which is potentially the first time anyone has ever asked him a question, possibly in life and death, and ever since. And just keeps asking until he tells them about the Chamber of Secrets. And that cracks me up. That whole moment of her just being like, you will tell us. Like, that was her just like stubborn will to be like, you will tell us.
Yep. You are the one who probably knows. I need the info from you. Yes. I love that. I did admire her integrity with the promises she makes when they go to Nick's death day party. When they really don't want to. And she she's very much like, no, we have to go. Yeah. So I did appreciate that about her character.
Yeah. She does kind of want to go because it would be a fun thing, and who's ever gone to that?
Oh, for yeah. I mean, that's a power move. Like, we went to a death day party.
Right, with all of these like famous people. But
for sure.
No, I do appreciate that she does hold them to that. She does get all of her high perception check moments of noticing the words first, noticing the spiders. There's a lot of like fun those moments in this book that she sees things before anybody else. She does get real feisty in this one, and you see more of that later. This is where she starts that feistiness.
She does like a complete 180 about rules in this one, because that's why this is one of the big Slytherin tendencies with the Polyjuice Potion, because she breaks so many rules because she needs to. Like it's
is that Slytherin or is it Gryffindor, because she is doing it not for herself. She is upset because it's mudbloods. That's why I think she was sorted into Gryffindor. First year her is not Gryffindor.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
Especially with how she grows into herself, she feels personally attacked because it is people like her.
That's
people
true.
Who are,
That's true.
This is not a see if I can do this.
Yeah, there's a lot of cunning that goes into play in this planning. But I do agree that the motivation.
But it's not even cunning because the plan is terrible. It barely works. She asks Lockhart on the other people tell her. The other two are how are we going to get this book? And the other two are like, obviously Lockhart, like he's an idiot. She's like, he's not an idiot. And they're like, yes, he is. Go ask her. And then she almost doesn't do it.
That's right.
So the plan almost fails because she is too nervous to ask him.
That's right. Okay. So
now don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
The overall plan of making, which is once again the long-term, short-term, the long-term plan of this Polyjuice Potion, and this is how we're going to get him is brilliant, and the boys never could have done it. They never could have brewed that potion. That's so difficult. Yeah. But the nitty-gritty of like, she's like, oh, I'll just like steal them. You'll figure something out.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who have to make it happen. And even them, they're like, this plan is terrible to get the hair from the boys.
Yeah.
They're like, that is the only plan of hers that like works out as she stated. Yeah. No other plan she makes throughout the rest of the books that is last minute like that works out for her. Yeah. In the way she thinks.
Yeah.
Never. And they're all like, wow.
And it's funnier thinking about this now, because later in the book she's so supportive of Snape because Dumbledore trusts him. Yes. But in the first in the first few books she sets him on fire. Yes. And then steals from him. So it's like
and like poorly. Harry like sees her. It's like there's a huge wad of stuff. Like, you were not subtle about that.
And how does she not get caught? How does no one try and figure this out? Like, he knows someone is making Polyjuice Potion.
Because
like,
he hates Harry. It was a luck that had nothing to do with her planning and had everything to do with the fact that Harry was the one who used the firework.
Yeah. Like,
and Snape already doesn't like him. And it was like, well, everything was you. You stole it. Because he says it again in book 4.
Yeah. He
never assumed it was Harry. Or Hermione. He always
it had to be.
She probably helps, but it was him. So it was like all these things that happened to work out that were luck for Hermione.
Yeah.
But the long-term planning and the motivations behind it were very strong.
Yes.
And in the right place.
Yeah.
But it's those little things that you're like the details of the like, oh, well, and then how do we make this happen? She's like not as strong. But that's fine. Yeah. Because all 3 of them together
it worked out.
Made that happen. You know?
I did write the line down too, because she doesn't bat an eye at like all the Polyjuice Potion ingredients, and she's adding them that are disgusting. And then she says, well, if you two are going to chicken out, fine.
Yes.
It's like, okay.
Yes, I love that.
Okay. Yeah. She is feisty in book 2 and not batting an eye.
Yes.
She is ready to go. And that's why it's so interesting that she then gets petrified, because she's so gung-ho.
She is.
This entire book.
She catches it so fast. It is a bummer that she does get the cat hair.
Yeah, I wanted her to be part of that.
Instead of like, she didn't get to go.
Yeah.
So, and she had to go to the hospital. So we do get her, she's out for a chunk of the book in that aspect as well.
Yeah.
And there's more moments of her playing chess.
Yes.
Just like scrolling to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Yes.
More moments. I also enjoy that they keep bringing up that Harry has the eagle quill that she got him.
Yeah.
For his first birthday after they were friends.
Yeah.
It like is continuously brought up that he's using this specific quill.
Like pretty cool. Yeah. It's really cute.
That was really sweet of you.
Yeah.
I love her sleeping with his Lockhart's get well soon card under her pillow.
Yes.
That cracks me up.
So funny. It's because even after all the stuff and even being able to like trick him, like it wasn't hard to get the books and things.
No,
that, like,
she was nervous and wanted to keep a signature. Like that was not a trick.
It's so cute.
So she's hidden from everybody else when she is like in her cat form, if you will. Yeah. But she's not nervous to show Harry and Ron that. Like they still visit her and bring her homework, and she's thrilled to do it and thrilled to see them, and is fine with them seeing her like that.
Yeah.
And I think that is such a strong friendship for her to truly not care that they are seeing her in various stages of becoming a human again.
Yeah. Pomfrey is nice and makes sure that she's cut off so no one is like watching this. But like, that she's not ashamed to show whatever weird state she's in. It's really sweet. I think that's a really sweet friendship.
Like she trusts them a lot.
Yeah.
This book does start the moments of her being upset that everybody's not at her level. She gets upset that like, Ron, you do not strive for the level of like perfection at your schoolwork that I do. That's dumb. Why don't you do that?
Yeah. Yeah, and it gets worse in
ma'am. It gets so worse. It gets worse for so long. It's like, girl, what are we doing? I am confused by this last moment. I do love the last moment in the book too that she does. You find out that she figured it out already. She had found the page of basilisks, had written pipes. What I don't believe is that Hermione Granger not only wrote in a library book, but ripped out a page and put it in her hand.
Yeah.
That I do not believe that for a second. So that to me reads as, oh shoot, we needed a way to make it seem like she already knew it.
Super dramatic. And like, why not just be like a notebook page that said basilisk, blah, 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 like a little definition, and then pipes, question mark. Like it didn't need to be the physical page.
Pince would have heard that from a mile away.
Yeah.
Pince would have come down on them like a vulture.
Yep.
If they...
Yeah, especially after the Disfeld when she screams at Harry's book. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, like what are we doing? So I'm just... That was a little confusing, but I do appreciate that she was so excited that they figured it out.
Yeah.
Although she is upset they canceled exams. So...
you got to keep that. You got to keep that part of her. You know, you got to
keep
like,
that. Yeah. She loved, that's a fun moment. And I do love the slight ignorance of, even with how close she is to them, she sometimes isn't great at peopling, even with Ron and Harry. And the last thing she says in book 2 is, won't your aunt and uncle be like proud of you that you like killed This basilisk?
Yeah, because
Poor thing. Poor thing.
No.
Which also leads back to her sweet family. Like,
Yeah, she has a nice, like, her
parents, I'm
family's
sure, are
very
so
supportive.
proud of her.
They take her
Yeah.
on trips. Like,
yeah, they're on holiday all the
Yeah.
darn time.
Yeah.
Like,
it's very sweet.
you know?
Yeah.
She's like, your family's the same, right? Oh, no. No, my dear.
No. Oh, I love it. It's a sweet book too. Feisty book 2. We have Bratty book 1, Feisty book 2, and then we get her spotlight book on book 3.
Book 3?
Book 3! It starts with Hermione going on a holiday to France with her parents, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And
But I love, too,
Yeah.
that she's mentioned before that's even said.
Ooh, remind me.
The opening sequence is he's using her quill.
Oh, that's right.
To do homework.
That's cute.
I mean, it's like such a sweet thing. And I love that it keeps coming back because there's that thought process of like, Hermione does very much get into herself a lot.
Yeah.
But those few times that she is really good with like thinking about what the boys would truly want and what would be useful.
Yeah.
Like it's usually that kind of combination.
Mm-hmm.
She is right on it.
Her presents are
really
actually
cool.
quite good. Like the few times they're made, I'm like, oh, that's perfect.
And they're
for
always so
them.
worried about it.
Yeah.
But then they're great.
yeah. It's really sweet. Oh, because she gives him a birthday present, and it's a broom service kit.
Yes.
And this is so sweet. It's perfect.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Another big thing that happens in the beginning of this is when she goes to buy a pet. We all assume she'll get an owl. Like that's the most useful, it seems,
Truly.
creature to have in this
super,
world.
Super useful.
And then she buys a cat. She buys Crookshanks. Specifically, I believe it's because no one wanted him.
Yeah, he's been there forever.
Which is really sweet that she buys the cat that no one wants. We all love Crookshanks.
Yeah.
They're very smart. We find out... I just have this image of Crookshanks having like a third eye, like understanding and seeing things that Hermione would never see. So I just feel like Crookshanks is the perfect pet for her because it knows when things are bad, like with Pettigrew in book 4. Or in this book. No, in this one. This one. So like Crookshanks gets...
She can smell the difference though because she's an animal.
Yeah. So she's kind of the animal that Hermione needed.
But Hermione does not know how to take care of. Yeah,
no.
She does not know how to take care of Crookshanks, and it gets infuriating. Also, we never know where Crookshanks went at the end of the books, but that is an entire different thing.
But that's what it doesn't make sense. So she has so much empathy for this creature that is not wanted. Like maybe connects with the outcastness feeling. I don't know. But then she doesn't care for the creature at all.
No. And I think part of it is she doesn't know.
Well, she's a kid. I mean, to be fair,
I don't think she truly knows.
Yeah.
This truly may be the first animal she's ever had to take care of, and she does not know what she's doing with it. I also think that while she's in Diagon Alley with everyone, she immediately goes up to Harry and says, "You didn't really blow up your aunt, did you?" Like in a super serious tone. And it cracks me up because I'm like, did she truly? Was she so in control of herself that she never had those like bursts of magical moments that most magical kids have?
Yeah. She always had the ability to control. She was very naturally talented, but at some point something sparked because you don't just think, man, I have magic as a muggle.
But maybe she did. And maybe it was McGonagall showing up at her front door being like, "Hi, you're a witch." I don't really know because like almost everyone else who interacts with that moment of like finding out that he did that is like, you know, that happens. Like the Minister of Magic is like, "Oh, we don't expel people for every ant they blow up." You know? It's like,
it's very casual.
Things like that happen. Little things that you see from multiple characters. So it's like, did she not have anything like that she did out of her control?
Maybe not. Maybe she just had a couple moments where magic occurred, like how we see Lily jump from a swing and float down. Like maybe it was something like that.
She could always control it and it wasn't a surge, if you will.
Yeah, maybe she never had bursts of it. Maybe it was always like in little, or it was in like Savior, how Neville like reacts by saving himself and bouncing. Like maybe it was just like a couple little things where it was a protective thing rather than a burst of anger. That's interesting. I never thought about that. The fact that she was so shocked by that moment. It does show that she is from a Muggle
as if it was
society.
His fault is the way.
Yeah, he controlled that moment. Yeah.
I have written like she didn't even ask why he did it.
Oh, just
she didn't ask how it happened. She just was like, "You didn't do that, right?" Like scolding.
Yeah,
and that part seems more important than the fact that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because like you said, with like protective magic, that's obviously there's a very big reason for that to happen. So like, why would the amp blow up? And her life probably doesn't lead to these kinds of blow ups. She's an only child. Her parents seem very attentive. She just came back from France on holiday, you know?
Yeah, they go on vacation together.
They go all the time. You hear, especially in the 7th book, all the different places she goes with them for holiday. I wonder truly if like those spurts of magic just didn't happen on her because she was never in a situation where her life was at risk or she was being threatened in that way.
Emotionally tense enough to surge in that way. Because it does seem to take a lot to get her. It doesn't. There are times where she explodes, and there are times
it depends
where,
on what it is.
Yeah.
If her intelligence and she is not the best in the room, it's very quick to temper.
Yeah. Oh, we do see her quick temper in this book when we get to her new class. So
yes. Oh. She also has a September birthday.
Oh, that's fun.
Never mentioned outside of this book.
Happy
we don't
birthday.
know what day.
Happy belated birthday. You know,
they never celebrate it.
Yeah, no one else gets a birthday in this book series.
You were saying that we see some of Hermione's temper in the series.
We do.
Or in this book.
But she goes to this new divination class and is like instantly just meets Trelawney with skepticism and rudeness. And I think that's what surprises me because it's she can be skeptical about the whole thing, but the blatant rudeness
for sure.
is what surprises me. I'm like, oh, you don't talk to teachers like this. So and we haven't seen her in McGonagall. We haven't seen McGonagall downplay Trelawney in divination. So I don't know where she learned to be condescending to Trelawney. No. It was very odd. It felt very out of character.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because even when there's a point made that she turns when Trelawney mentions that the books aren't going to be as helpful and suddenly she's not on her side. However, she never says anything about Snape and Snape almost never uses the books.
That's true. We don't really talk about the potion books. Which is something we will talk
about more with her in later movies, specifically with her. But like Snape does a lot of it from the board. In the books, it's follow my instructions.
Yeah, it's like lecture based. It's not book based. That's still a form of instruction.
Right. And like later you find out that this magic is very real. Now, I will say, like if I was setting the curriculum for a class like this, like clearly there's only so much you can learn unless you physically have the eye. Yeah. So like these first couple years should probably just be like, these are the basics. And this is like understanding what we get from seers. Yeah. And like sussing out where possible seers are. Whereas Trelawney definitely like goes a little rogue and a little wild with like loosey-goosey with how she's teaching. So I understand like Hermione not enjoying that teaching style. Yes. But her immediately being just rude to Sybil just seems out of character.
You can not like a teacher. You can like make fun of a subject. That's totally fine. But it takes
like to her face.
But to her face, rudeness to a teacher. I would even understand it later on in the book when she's overly stressed and finally like walks out of said class. I understand if it had built, but she hadn't become overwhelmed from the use of her time turner in this book yet. Right. So it doesn't really make sense to me that it's just, immediate. She hadn't had, McGonagall didn't help her along. It just was an immediate thing. And I was like, ooh, I don't know what's happening.
I do enjoy, though, at the beginning of this class, that this is the beginning of her shifting in and out of class. So if you read the books and read specifically when they're in class, you can tell the moments that Hermione is at class and when she's not class, which I think is really, really interesting. Yeah. Even without those many moments of Ron being like, where'd you come from? Yeah. Which it's always Ron. Yeah. Because he's very protective of her. Yes. Which you're not being sneaky, Hermione, by just being like, it's nothing, don't worry about it. I'm going to redirect. Like, he doesn't forget. He just doesn't push you about it because...
Yeah, because something is happening. You know? Like, you're not hiding this at all.
No.
That is cool.
What? So,
it's cool that it's mapped in that way. Yeah, that you could,
for sure. You can read in and out of moments of where it is very clearly only Harry and Ron talking and only Harry and Ron mentioned. And then suddenly she comes out of nowhere and she starts talking too. And you're like, oh, she's here too? Yeah. I think that's like most of my notes is like, at what point did she make it to each class that they're in, you know? Yeah. It's not something you catch when you read it the first time. It's definitely more fun as you reread it and you know it's coming and you're like, where is she? Did she go to class yet? Is she there?
Where in the world
she walk
is
with them?
Miney?
Yeah. For sure. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's cool because you get to see the puzzle, but you're not getting surprised by it because time travel is not something you understand in this world until this book. So, and then never again, because what was she thinking?
Until the book we will not be talking about.
Yes. Yeah, which I haven't read and probably will never. But it's an interesting element to add to the magical world we've never seen before. So rereading back, you can see it puzzled in a way that you're not supposed to the first time you read it, which is really cool.
And then heading back to Trelawney's class, and McGonagall and everybody, and you had mentioned that it's not until after her class that you find out that McGonagall's feelings on Trelawney. I think Hermione misinterprets what Minerva's saying a little bit because Minerva isn't a huge fan of divination, but she says it in a way where it's not an exact science, which it's not.
Yeah.
And yes, that was laced with her own opinions of having to live with Sybil, who, won't sit down at a table with 13 people. But Hermione almost runs with it. It's like, oh, Minerva doesn't like her either. I don't need to like her either.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. It almost takes her to the next level of blatant rudeness to an adult. Yeah. Like that.
It ends up hindering them a bit. Yeah. In this book because she doesn't believe in the Grimm.
Yes.
And that's something, I mean, like they're a Dementor. A Dementor was on the train.
Yep.
And the Grimm is what you're like, nah, that's not real.
There's a couple moments later in books
that would have been taken seriously sooner.
Yeah. There's a couple moments later in books that we'll get to that things are kind of falling into place that feel like, oh man, this is like fable into reality. And I'm like, after everything you've seen in this magical world, you don't believe in this? Like, I don't, like, is that so hard to believe that there are these magical beings and demons and signs? And like, she comes from the Muggle world. So I don't understand how after learning magic exists, how everything isn't a possibility. Unicorns are real. Yeah. They're flying like things you can't see if you don't see death. There are so many things that I'm like, how are all of these magical signs and stories not potentially true to you?
Right.
After going from Muggle to magic, just in general.
I don't understand.
It gets worse
like
later.
It does. But I don't know. It feels like that little bit of her feels a little bit like, we need some friction. I could see Hermione being skeptical of divination, but we don't need her to be like, I hate it.
I agree. And even, you know what, you can even keep her storming out later because of the frustration of everything else. Like this is a waste of my time. I'm leaving.
Yeah. I'm like killing myself doing all these classes and this one is not it for me.
Yeah. Like then you're like sympathetic to her situation once you learn everything. But now she's just rude from the whole thing.
Something that I did comment for Hermione, which I did want to mention because there are very few times that she jumps to action. She's the first to try to do something, but it's the thing she's good at is I'm going to comfort you. Yeah. Like she's the first person to comfort Ginny after the Dementors get her on the train. Yeah. So they had a Hippogriff class and Malfoy being Malfoy was a brat and got himself hurt. Yeah. So as, Malfoy collapses, he's dying. Hagrid picks him up and carries him out. She is the first one to run up and she opens the door for him, the gate, so that Hagrid could take them out. Yeah. She also immediately after just like nervously starts talking about like, will he be all right? Yeah. Meaning Hagrid. Yeah. Not Malfoy. She's hoping Malfoy will be all right so that Hagrid will not be fired. Yeah. She's so on it for a bit. I don't know. I think that's a very fun thing because she doesn't often have those moments where she is like, I nailed it this time for my quick thinking.
And the Buckbeak thing is really interesting because you do see her very determined throughout this entire book to help Hagrid. And she has nothing to gain by helping Hagrid other than to be a good friend and use her skills to help an innocent creature. So it's another empathetic animal moment for her with Buckbeak. And you see her go into like full lawyer mode. Even when she's arguing with the boys, she's still visiting Hagrid and trying to get him information to try and help Buckbeak get out of this situation. So it is cool to see her really try.
I have a theory about that.
Ooh, help. Yeah, go.
You mentioned the empathy of animals. I don't think it's about Buckbeak. I think it's about Hagrid.
Okay.
Who are Hermione's friends? Ron.
Yeah.
Harry. Who else does she have?
Just Hagrid.
Just Hagrid.
Yep.
Whereas you see in other moments of like the boys hang out with the boys in their dorm. They are interchangeable. They will hang out with the Quidditch team. Hermione does not hang out with anybody else.
Yeah.
But the two boys and Hagrid. Now, that is not a bad thing. I think that puts Hagrid very high on her list of people she cares about, you know?
Yeah.
And you see that throughout the series where she very often is like very attentive of him. She understands his feelings accurately more than almost anybody else. Which makes sense because she spends a lot of time with him, especially in this book when they're all arguing, and there's other times where they're arguing and she has nowhere to go. So she goes and hangs out with Hagrid. So I think this is truly her love for Hagrid and wanting him to not feel the way he is, to not lose his job. And it's a challenge.
Oh, for sure.
That's her wheelhouse.
That's true. It felt initially like an empathetic animal moment just because it's Buckbeak, but I think you're right. Because later we learn that she's been visiting Hagrid and only Hagrid while they've been fighting because she's really
and later
broken
we
from
learn that she doesn't like Buckbeak. She is,
yeah.
In later books, she's really, really scared of Buckbeak and is still scared that he could hurt her or anybody. Not that she dislikes animals. I don't think she dislikes them. I just don't think she's good with them. And she prefers Hagrid, which is fine. That's very endearing that she has decided that Hagrid is her next best friend.
Yeah, and does everything
I think that's
she
very
can.
Sweet of her.
She really goes like she
totally.
does everything she can to help with that trial, and does a really good job.
The trial is what helps rekindle the friendship between them all.
Yeah.
Because if anything is going to pull them back together, Ron is not letting a friend of his be upset.
Yep.
So the instant when Hermione's like overloaded, she's like, I can't help, it didn't work. And she tells them that's what breaks her silence with them. Tells them about the ruling. And she's like, and I can't help anymore. And Ron's like, I'll do it. Yeah, like without a second thought. He's like,
yeah,
like they are friends again. He will do it for her.
Yeah, that was a really cool moment.
We have a whole potions class where there's some in and out stuff with her where she's not mentioned in this potions class for ages. And then suddenly she's there helping Neville.
Yes.
At some point really quietly.
Yeah.
And then that's also the first notice of her tucking something into her shirt. So that's the first like, maybe is that? What is that? And then when her bag splits when she's flustered and going, Ron immediately is like helping her, but is like, so what's how you have all these books? Like what's going on? Like, we do see in this book one of my least favorite flaws that she has. I think it's, I don't know. Let me know what you think about this flaw because I'm not a huge fan of it. And I understand her ambition and her aptitude for excellence, but I don't understand the aptitude for excellence at the expense of others. So we see that a lot in later books, but it starts here where she raises her hand in an off-putting way in Defense Against the Dark Arts class is how it's written. When Harry is asked a question in class. It's not like they said, oh, anybody know this answer? Literally was like, Harry, here is the question. And she raises her hand immediately and then is disappointed when he's right.
Yeah, I don't like that.
And it gets worse later.
Yeah.
It gets way worse later.
Yeah,
but this is where it kind of, you start to see taste of it.
Yeah. Like it is a big flaw of hers. And it does make her a flawed human. But I don't enjoy it as part of her character, especially by this book. That feels like a book 1 Hermione thing. But by book 3, I feel, especially with her friends, it feels like not even being able to support your friends being correct about stuff is and
it just gets worse, which is frustrating. It's not until like the last book that it becomes less of an issue.
Yeah, it's one thing to be disappointed when you're not called on if the class is asked a question, or to be not the best in the class because she ends up not being the best at Defense Against the Dark Arts as you move through the series. Harry is, obviously, for obvious reasons. But it's a very poor, selfish character choice to want your friends to not succeed. Other people even Draco, being disappointed when Draco is like right or gets, praise. That's one thing. But for your friend to get it right. And yeah,
for your friends.
That's weird. That doesn't feel like her, especially after all she's done already to support and save her friends. It feels weird.
Because she has a lot of flaws.
She does. She doesn't need any more.
Which is fine. It's good that she's flawed. I appreciate that. However, yes, I agree, India. She does not need any more. Yeah. Some of these could have been cut.
And that felt like it was put in not because it's a real flaw she has, but that it was funny. It feels like it was a funny bit.
Yes.
Rather than her actual character.
I 100% agree. And it just gets funnier.
Yeah,
not
quote
funny,
unquote.
as it goes on. So, but that will come back. So we will definitely be talking about that more.
Mm-hmm.
Something I wanted to touch on a little bit that starts more heavily in these books and continues on later, because there is a big difference between Hermione in the books and Hermione in the movies.
Yep.
Also Ron in the books and Ron in the movies.
Yes.
Harry's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But Ron was kind of turned to comic relief, which then leads to why on earth are they together? So why? It just doesn't make sense. But in the books, I do want to point out all these moments as we talk through them that Hermione and Ron hang out without Harry.
Yeah.
And they do it a lot. They are seen multiple times doing homework together when Harry's off. She pairs with him too. Instead of Ron normally goes right to Harry, but no, they paired together for the hippogriff class and things like that. It's not just like, it is a very casual friends to lovers.
Yeah.
Where they do truly spend time together. And if he was always that annoying, they would not voluntarily hung out that often without Harry.
And book Ron is not represented as dumb. He's represented as lazy, but not dumb.
Oh,
and
for
then,
sure.
And
for
movie
sure,
Ron, because they take away so much of his like empathy for others sometimes in
and
the
give
movies.
his lines to Hermione.
Yes.
Give all of the empathetic lines to Hermione.
Yes, they do that, and that makes him just dumb. And it discredits how smart he actually is in the books.
Which is where you see Hermione wanting him.
And needing
and them.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So, I just want to casually remind those who maybe have not read the books or haven't read the books in a while.
Yeah.
Just those little moments here and there. So if you're like, why are you just mentioning they're doing homework every once in a while?
Yeah.
I just want to put that in there that they do hang out.
Yes.
And it makes sense. Now, moving from her to her and Crookshanks, which also we will point out throughout this whole book about how poorly she takes care of him.
Yep. Yep.
But Crookshanks is a strong, independent man and does not need no owner.
Nope.
She's very proud that Crookshanks caught this big, nasty spider and like drops it down in front of them, which is a very cat thing to do.
Yes.
Do not get me wrong.
Yeah.
But like when the cat continuously goes for Scabbers, she doesn't do anything about it. In fact, when he pulls his backpack away from Scabbers, or not Scabbers, from Crookshanks, she's like, don't hurt the cat. It's like, he hasn't touched your cat.
Yeah.
He has to keep his rat in his backpack because of your cat.
It's so
like he's being accommodating for you.
Yeah.
And you're still like getting mad at him and not doing anything about it. She doesn't even attempt to get the cat from like mauling Ron and this bag until other students are like, hey, what's up? That's maybe we should stop this.
Yeah. Well, so I'm just thinking, as a pet owner, if my dog was lunging at any other creature,
I'd be mortified.
I'd be apologizing. I'd be pulling the dog away. I'd be like, okay, we can't do this. We can't bring him into the common area anymore. That's just not okay. Like, and she's just so mad every time that Crookshanks gets yelled at by Ron. I'm like, you're literally attacking his rat who will not survive. Like, they are.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely not. That thing is ancient.
And they are enemies in the animal kingdom. So
yes,
the rat dies in this scenario. That bothers me a lot. It's like a little empathy for your friend's pet that he's had a lot longer than you've had your cat.
So that this book has a lot of flaws, but something else that is just tied to her divination thing that made me really angry. It, like this is one of the very few moments. There have been moments that like Hermione gets frustrating. Yeah. Ron gets mean.
Yeah, it's true.
And Harry gets very into himself and introspective to the point where he struggles to share with others and get over these emotions, you know? So they all have their big flaws.
Yeah.
And they do make me frustrated. But the only moment that made me angry was when she sees Lavender upset. She's upset at the table and immediately is like, oh, well, your bunny's dead because it is dead. It has nothing to do with divination. And starts berating her about her dead pet.
Oh my God.
And she literally doesn't stop until Ron, and this is one of the few moments where Ron is mean, where I'm like, I mean, yeah, she deserved it.
Yeah.
Because I was so angry at her. Like, it's making Lavender cry harder.
Yeah.
Pavarti's ready to kill her with her eyes.
Yep.
And then Ron's like, oh, don't worry about it. She doesn't care about other people's pets. And
Kinda
then
true.
she stops. And yeah, like that was, I could not believe it when she kept pushing.
Yeah.
That, oh, it's not divination. This girl is crying over her lost pet. Now is not the time.
Yeah. Now you're a bully.
True. And that made me so mad. I'm like, I know Hermione's stubborn, but you're telling me she would do this now? She wouldn't have this conversation with like Ron and Harry later.
Yeah.
Like as they were leaving the hall and be like, see, she thinks it's because of this, but actually it's because of this.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And I get that they're all
that made me
teenagers and
super
they're
angry.
all like supposed to be flawed and stuff. But like, some what we're talking about is the like extreme step of like, okay, be a human for a second though, and not be the heroine you're supposed to be in the book.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
You gotta have one lead heroine.
Like, right. And we do, it's sometimes those moments of her flaw of not totally understanding people. I don't mind. Like later we have a moment where she has this like all for the best attitude that Harry can't go to Hogsmeade because he didn't have anybody sign his form, which doesn't make Harry feel real great. But Ron, on the other hand, spends the entire breakfast cheering up Harry.
Yeah.
And that didn't bother me at all. I'm like, that feels very Hermione. Hermione's like, here, all my ducks, they are in a row. He will be safe.
Yeah.
We don't have to watch him.
Silver lining.
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect. Moving on. I am not considering his feelings because that doesn't matter. Logically, he's safe.
Yep.
You know?
Yes. Yes.
Like, that didn't bother me. Is it still a flaw that can get frustrating as it goes on? Yes. But I want the characters to make me frustrated.
Yeah.
That means they have depth.
Yeah.
I don't want them as the heroine to make me seethe.
I don't want to root against them.
Yeah.
You know, like that's never something I want to do.
Right. And every once in a while, Hermione has those moments that it just feels too forced.
Yeah.
I think it's very, the sweet side of the flaws where she's like, Harry, while we were at Hogsmeade, I hope you did lots of homework.
Yep.
You had so much time to do all your homework, and like fully believes that yes, of course. What else would he do?
Yeah.
That's like a sweet, endearing flaw.
Yeah. And you do understand the big fight in this. And sorry if I'm jumping a little bit. The big fight in this is when she tells McGonagall about the firebolt in the middle of the book, which in the movie you don't get. You get it at the end. And so Harry gets...
And it wasn't even a thing.
Yeah.
Hermione's like super for the broomstick.
Yeah. And so I did like that in the books you have her having a moment of speculation that was warranted because, there's a guy trying to kill you and it's a random expensive broom.
For sure.
Comes around. So I enjoy that she put the idea of Harry's safety ahead of them liking her for the moment.
Yes.
So that was kind of a cool thing. And I also wrote down probably best she disappears into her workload for a little bit because she was getting to be a bit much. So like there's a little break from her in the book that is kind of needed at that point.
Which is frustrating that we want it. Yeah. Something also, since you mentioned things that are different in the movie, this is another moment that they gave different lines to different people.
Yeah.
So another classic Hermione, which is a good flaw to have, of her not reading the room. She is not reading Snape correctly and like continues to like push and be like, we haven't covered that in class yet, when he takes over for Lupin for a day and is really forceful about it. And finally gets Snape to the point where he scolds her, he chides her and takes house points. Ron immediately in the book stands up for her. Talks right back to Snape. So that's a moment where you're like, okay, he is defending her.
Yeah.
They are on the same side. This is before the firebolt incident.
Yeah.
And just another like, okay, they are friends. This makes sense.
Yeah.
In the movies, they gave him the line. He doesn't stand up for her. Instead, he turns around and says, he's got a point, doesn't he? That is one of the hugest things that like derailed their potential relationship.
Yeah.
Because now when you're given stuff like that, how on earth, you're like, why would they be together? We have the broom. We've talked about Buckbeak. We have another moment where like she brings Crookshanks into the boys' room without asking. Not only does she go into their room without knocking or anything, but she brings the cat with them.
Yep.
That made me furious, especially because I'm assuming now Ron has to like sequester Scabbers to the boys' room.
Yeah.
So now you're going to bring the cat there. Makes me so angry. Like, what if one of those poor boys had a cat allergy? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
As you mentioned, we get a big long gap from Hermione. It is 2 months.
Oh, that's right.
2 months of the whole school year.
Yep.
She does not speak to them.
Yep.
Still oblivious to Crookshanks.
Yep.
And after the very convincing death,
Mm-hmm.
Ron does lash out in that moment. But at the same time, his pet was just killed, and Hermione's pretending he wasn't.
Yeah. That's justified.
Yeah.
Ron, I would be completely flipped out on someone if that was completely unapologetic, not taking any kind of, not trying to help find it or make better. Oh, her break when she doesn't talk to them for 2 months is also when she discovers that Lupin is a werewolf. You learn that she kept that secret for Lupin, which is really cool.
She even knew before that because she knew it since the
the Bogart.
the paper was assigned. Not the Bogart, when the paper was assigned.
Yes.
From Snape.
Yeah, because Snape was not subtle at all in what he was teaching.
Yeah. Oh no, that was forceful. But speaking of Bogart, we don't see hers on purpose so that we can see her Bogart later in this book, which is very fun and that's one of the last moments. So we'll talk about it because it's funny. But yeah, she during that break, she takes time to help with Buckbeak, which we have mentioned. Multiple times Harry tries to get them to make up.
Yes.
Much like Hermione does that for them sometimes when they're frustrated at each other.
I do
appreciate that.
Yes, and I do enjoy in the series that we do see friends fighting. We see friends fighting. We see serious fights that last a couple months.
Because that's real.
We see them break up. Yeah, we see them not break up. We see them make up and come back together, and how that can take a little bit. And I do enjoy that reality.
I do love when she starts to go downhill. Yes. And this, I don't mind. I think it's very in character. I think it's very funny. I think it's very well written of her just getting overloaded with work. And she starts to get so sick and tired of it that she does not care what other people will think. She is scolding everybody in the rooms.
Yep.
She is doing all sorts of things where she is just on edge all the damn time.
Yep.
She like cracks after like missing charms and lunch. And that's when she like leaves divination for good. My favorite moment. My favorite moment from when she just like full kilter leaves it is when Malfoy starts speaking poorly of Hagrid, which she spent months helping him. And then Ron spent months helping him. And now Malfoy is like, can't wait to hear this thing die. Like she slaps him.
Yes.
Which he's shocked at.
Yep.
And then she raises her wand.
Yes.
To his face. And that is what is scary to him.
Yep.
Because he knows how strong she is with that wand.
Yep. That she has a back pocket full of so many spells that he's never even heard of before.
Right. And Ron, once again, it's Ron who helps pull her off Malfoy. It is not Harry.
Yeah. That she has to be stopped. I really like that she has to be stopped from slapping him again, and then yells at Ron to let her go.
He tries to hold her back. He can't do it.
Yeah. Like, that's a good, a satisfying moment, because she also takes so much from Draco with the mudblood stuff, and it's not that pushes her over, which I enjoy. It's Hagrid. So I think that's very telling of her too.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. And that was very satisfying. I do like in the movie that she punches him against that wall. I think that is really
visually that's much better than a slap. Like, it looks more forceful, you know?
Yeah. No, that was super fun.
It was good. And it's like right before full burnout, like exam time. Yes. So it's like everything has culminated to this moment. Which is great.
Which that moment we are here.
Yes.
Friends. We are here. We are at her Bogart.
Yes.
So she excels at all her exams. She does a great job. But then, and I don't mind this. I think it's very funny. I think it's very endearing, and hails back to something I brought up in the first book, where her biggest problem in life is her exams.
Yes.
And I just think that's very sweet and gives such a big dynamic to the trio. But her Bogart is Minerva telling her she's failed everything. And she fails that portion of the test. Yeah. She's still like passes everything else, so she still gets a good grade, but she fails that portion of the test because she runs out crying to Lupin, telling everybody that Lupin failed or that she failed because Minerva told her.
It's like, oh, honey, like, it's a boggart, like it's.
But she's so like that's her biggest fear.
It's very endearing. That was very.
Oh, it's super endearing. I'd be very interested to see what her boggart is, book 6, book 7, because I can't imagine it's that anymore.
No, absolutely not. We'll have to speculate that.
Speculations?
Mm-hmm. We'll have to speculate that when we get to book 7. I think we should speculate that by book 7 in our journey. Okay, I'll note that.
Yeah.
Put that in my brain.
Just a thought. Just a thought.
But very sweet for book 3, Hermione, to like be terrified of. Oh, yes, specifically McGonagall telling her, like, of all the people to disappoint.
Oh, for sure.
McGonagall. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, not that one can't.
Yeah.
We do see by the end of the book, she does start to scold Crookshanks over his behavior towards Scabbers. And I do appreciate that. Now we get into this where we see these things from 2 different perspectives.
Yes.
Which I thought would take a lot more notes for her, but it really didn't. She just kind of was like the vessel to make it happen.
Yes.
Which I didn't really realize until this reread. She's still very perceptive. She's the first to realize they're in the Shrieking Shack. She hears somebody coming. She calls for help. Something I really thought was cool. She kicks Black to help Harry in the Shrieking Shack. She's just not that physical person, up until recently with Malfoy. So her kicking him, I'm like, get it, girl. Like, you're facing your fears, especially since we talked about the troll in book 1 where she was paralyzed with fear. This is a very similar situation. Like he has the upper hand here. And from what they understand, he's a Death Eater, murdered Harry's parents. So for her to not black out and cry and go that step further and kick him off of Harry is huge. Super cool.
It's huge, and it goes a step further.
Cool girl.
Yeah, it goes a step further because then she covers the door. She puts herself in his path, which is like, oh, might not be your smartest move, but like bold of you, like brave of you.
You probably weigh like 4 pounds soaking wet, but like, get it, girl.
Yeah, it's like, okay, when it comes to not saving herself, she's much braver and bolder.
Yes.
So like that was a cool moment to see her grow from book 1. That's a good comparison to the change in situation.
I enjoyed that a lot. We have her also like talking up to showing that like where she like forgets she's 13 in this book. And she's like, he wants you dead too. He's a werewolf, talking about Lupin. I don't understand why he wants you dead, why she thinks he wants Harry dead as well. Yeah. But her calling out like he is a werewolf, bravely asking Snape when he enters to listen. Yeah. To what's happening, very forgetting she's 13, but not in a bad way.
It wasn't in a bad way. It does contradict some of the moments before where she doesn't believe things very quickly that are not as logical because she is the one who's like, let's talk through the idea of maybe Peter surviving.
Yeah. Why not kill Harry sooner? How did Mr. Black escape? Which is a very endearing moment when she calls him Mr. Black. Yeah, that's Sirius, like, so cute. Sirius is hard. Grew 3 sizes that day.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, this is the moment where it's a great moment for her to be that very like, I'm going to sit back as like a third party and get all the information, which is very mature, but it does contradict her disbelief of so many things that happen in the series.
I totally agree. And I'm so confused by like Mr. Black, but like Lupin's a werewolf and wants to kill you. Called him Mr. Black, but
Lupin?
He's like Lupin werewolf. Yes. Be scared of him. Get it. I totally understand. But that was a little confusing. We do see a little more of her lack of prowess with the Defense Against Dark Arts magic, where she cannot produce the Patronus charm right away. Yeah. And she is very good at spells right away. So for her not to be able to do it when Harry's like very quickly being like, just go for it. Yeah. It's also a thought of, yes, she has not gone to class. She has not learned it in her way that she needs to learn it. But also, does she also not feel that risk? Like the stakes are, obviously this is scary for her, but the stakes are not as high for her as they are for Harry in this moment. Yeah. Harry just found a family member who wants to be a family member. Yeah. I'm not sure. It could be a combination of both. Yeah. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Yeah. But then the cycle back, which I was surprised there wasn't as many notes for me, and maybe I missed stuff that you wanted to mention. Yeah. There wasn't as much. Like Dumbledore tells them, go back this many hours. And Harry's the one to figure out why.
Yes.
It's not Hermione. Harry's, and that's once again, maybe that short-term planning is not her strong suit kind of thing. Harry gets it, puts together. They go get Buckbeak. She does question Harry's sanity when he says that my dad cast the spell.
Yes.
So it's literally not until that spell is so beautifully cast that she like stops scolding him. So, and that's really the time back. That's really it. That's all I have for her. Because then we're back at, she catches Ron up on everything while Harry's dealing with the fallout of everything else. And she decided to return the time turner and drop Muggle studies. So now she's dropped 2 classes so she doesn't have to like kill herself getting in classes. But that's it. I was a little disappointed, especially since this was supposed to be kind of her moment. I know Ron didn't get very far in the Chamber of Secrets either.
Yeah, that's true.
But it felt like he did a little bit more. But I don't know. Maybe I just was like hoping that Hermione would be a little more active because in the movies it does seem like that is a bigger chunk and they have conversations during those moments that they don't have in the books. And then it leads more to the like in the books or in the movies. It's like, well, what? Like Harry and Hermione have such strong chemistry because they were given scenes in that. In the movie where she calls out, in the movie she is much more clever on the go, on the fly. Her calling out for Lupin and saving them is not in the books. Her calling out and like throwing the rocks, not in the books. You know, that is not something that book Hermione does.
And I did write down that she passed her Muggle exam with 320%. And I'm like, come on.
You right.
Like, come on. Like that's, I feel like you're
didn't
cheating.
Need to be in that class. Yeah. Ron was absolutely right.
I feel like you're cheating the system a little bit. That's a little too much. I feel like she should be teaching that class at that point.
Too many extra credit points.
Yeah.
Right.
And she does turn in her time turner.
Well.
Does she?
In the books, she turns it in.
Okay. I'm like, I wrote down that she turned it in the books.
Cursed Child, she doesn't turn it in. She kept the confiscated time turner, which is the only surviving one because they all get destroyed in a later book, which then causes the incidents that happen in the Cursed Child. But in the original series, she does give it back. Okay.
And yeah, she had her little feature, but kind of wasn't really a feature. And there we go. Book 3.
Nope.
Yep.
No, it's a good book and a good movie.
Yeah.
It's just diving into Hermione for this. It's a little tough for her. Particularly in this book. And now is where we really head into some of the bigger, thicker, denser stories.
Yes.
I would argue that book 4 is our first like official step into YA, which is where we just have a lot more to talk about. There's a lot more there to get into.
Book 4 is very Triwizard heavy, so there are moments where Hermione just kind of popping in and out of it, but she does get some really good highlights, and there's some really frustrating things happen with Hermione in this book, which we'll get to. The first note I have on book 4 is that we learn that her parents are dentists, which is very wholesome.
Book 4, I have... Once again, she's introduced with her quill.
Oh, yeah.
And she is not a morning person, which is something we never found out until today. So that begs the question, is she not a morning person because it's the day of the Quidditch final and she's not as interested as everyone else? Or is she truly not a morning person?
Ooh.
Who knows? And this is something that is different than the books. Or than the movies that I wasn't the hugest fan of because once again, it's making that like Hermione is perfect and on it and like way more adult than she is. Whereas here, I think the book does a really great balance of giving her moments that make her wiser than her years, but giving her flaws that still remind us that, oh, she's a kid. She also first sees Krum when she first sees him, thinks he looks really grumpy.
And then we get the
cracks me up.
He was very brave, wasn't he? After the dive.
Oh, yes. And it's just like this. So something about this book that I really enjoy that we don't really get in the movie, which Hermione does lose a lot of stuff. I mean, a lot of people lose a lot of stuff because the Quidditch match is not really in it as much as it says. Yeah. And there's a lot of things here that leading up to the match that I think are like build her character a little bit and round her out as just a person. And we don't get that a whole lot. And we don't get that at all in the movies. And then in the books, we don't get that a lot either. So it's nice to have these moments of like her very casually when Arthur insists they do everything the Muggle way outside. He is so proud and excited. She's the one to like casually take the matches and help light the fire.
Oh, yeah. I love when she teaches him about magic.
Yeah. She like when Lucius comes and is absolutely rude to everybody.
Yeah.
She does get pink. She does get embarrassed, but doesn't look away from him. It's just like these little casual moments we don't get a lot, especially in this book, because she gets into bigger, heavier things.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see all these more casual moments of her that helps round out her character and make her not just this headstrong pillar of justice know-it-all.
Yes.
She's a person. She can be embarrassed. She can.
Yes.
She can, instead of like being like, you don't know how to do this, she can kindly help Arthur to do this.
Yes.
But then we dive into the craziness. Which the start of one of the things that does take a lot of her focus. She does get upset after seeing Winky up in the box waiting the whole time. And while after events that happen at the Quidditch final after the win and they are attacked by Death Eaters, she is raging about house elves. She is worried about the Muggles and things like that. She knows the Dark Mark is Voldemort's.
It's randomly, that's which like that
probably should have been a Ron thing. That probably should have been a Ron thing. But like, it was weird to me that people are being attacked. These Muggles are being attacked. Like all these things are happening, and she's still raging. Yeah, like she's choosing this moment to rage about the elves. Yeah, girl, you have just learned to be able to keep conscious during stressful situations, and now.
Yeah. Now we're raging about,
You're raging about elves when you guys are trying to get to safety. That just seemed like a weird moment to start that. Yeah. Like definitely plant the seed. I like that she was upset about Winky being up there by herself and scared. Like I totally understand that. But it just seemed like a weird moment to start that.
And the author chose to, I wrote it down specifically because it was the start. I wrote the start of the house elf shit. And it was, it's slavery. That's what it is. It's like the first big line. And when you drop that, there is so much history and weight behind the idea of slavery that when you drop that, it's very specific. And you're trying to make Hermione an activist. And I get that becomes kind of a self-insert for the author. And it's not bad to have someone upset about injustice in the world. But then as we move forward, we'll talk a little bit more about why it becomes so incredibly frustrating and problematic.
So problematic. And up until this point, it's frustrating, but the only house elf we've met is Dobby.
Yes.
And Dobby, long may he reign. We love.
Yes. Oh,
you know. So you don't really see the issues with it until this book. Yeah. So I do understand the sense of justice that she has. I just don't get. We'll get more into it.
We're getting there. But that's the start. Like that's when you say that specific word. There's so much weight of our own knowledge of history and what it means in that world too. Especially because this is a modern day.
Yeah, it's a modern day story, and this author takes from history. Yeah, says the specific events that they take from history. Yeah. So, which makes it almost more uncomfortable. And some other things, don't get me wrong. But
that's the start of it.
Right. Since we're talking about Hermione, we'll be, that is part of it that we will be getting into. She does still call, which also, just like a couple of moments at the very, very beginning, we start off so strong with like learning a little bit about her as like a human. And then it like gets a little convoluted for a hot second. Yeah. She still calls Trelawney a fraud after all of the events of last year. Which is still surprising to me. Like, don't get me wrong. Call her kooky. Call her nutty. Especially after that second...
Prophecy?
Prophecy, yes. The second prophecy.
I got you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Yeah. After the second prophecy, which she is right about.
Yes. Yep.
Everything she says is true. It happens. She still, at bare minimum, doesn't even believe that she's a seer. Like, still is like, she's a big old fraud. Yeah. Yeah, she does. She is given classic Hermione, which sometimes I don't mind. In this moment, I didn't mind it as much. When they're like, oh, the author's like, they need to know something. Hermione will know it. Yeah. I did not mind at all that she knew about the other wizarding schools. I think that seemed right up her alley.
Yeah.
That she would have, when she discovered she was a witch, did all the research she could to make sure she went to the best school. That makes so much sense to me.
Yes.
That was a fun little sight into that.
Yeah. That feels like, she totally would have looked up what schools are possible to make sure it's not just Hogwarts she wants to get into or not.
Right. Also in this book, I don't know about you. I don't know if it's because it is so big and dense and now it can be more spread out. But I feel like my notes and mentions of her throughout are not as fluid. They're like a little more all over the place.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mine are too. They give her the house elf issue, and that kind of overtakes her middle section of this book. Other than every once in a while telling Harry that he needs to be doing his work for the tournament. And she kind of disappears in and out of that until we get to like the Rita rivalry. And then it becomes about that. So it does feel like it kind of sporadically she pops in and out because there's just so many other characters in play and she's not directly involved in the tournament. So it feels a little more sporadic, this book, for her.
A quick Ron moment with her. Malfoy comes in and is Malfoy. And he, in this moment, Malfoy is very terrible to them, leaves, and Ron, in frustration, breaks a glass window. Hermione is the one who comforts him and repairs the window real quick and makes sure that he's okay. That says a lot about their relationship, that she knows, even in this moment, that he is so utterly frustrated at Malfoy that he has to get out his frustration, but she is confident it will not be at them. You know, this is like a punching the pillow moment. This is a screaming to your pillow moment, but a window instead. And she's the first to like put her arms around him, fix the window, and calm him down.
That does come up, especially in the next book, not taking things personally.
Yes.
And so that is a cool trait of hers that you start seeing as she gets older, where like when they're frustrated, she knows it's not about their relationship, that it's very much like you're angry at something else, and flat out will say in later books, don't take this out on us.
Yes.
So that's a mature step up. Yeah.
Yeah,
about her.
I do too. And I think it reads well. I think she understands her friends very well.
Yes.
And any moments that she doesn't understand them is because she's interested in Ron, which we start to see in this book a little bit. And so she's a little blind to some moments, you know, as we all are when we are young and have crushes, you know, you miss some things because they're on a pedestal, you know?
Yeah. And she does show a little bit of empathy towards Neville when the Cruciatus curse is used in front of him, and she notices that it's bothering him and says something about it. So she doesn't ask him why.
Just because, that was weird.
Yeah. The next thing I have is the big ones.
I know. Okay. Oh, gosh.
Oh, I do have, before we get upset.
Yeah.
About,
yes. I know. I'm like, I feel like we're both like, what do we say before we dive into Spew?
This is connected to Spew, but a fun fact that might make Spew worse, but it is a cool history note. That so Spew obviously in the book is the Society of Protection of Elvish Welfare. So this is the thing she creates. What a lot of people believe it is based on is actually called the Society of Promoting the Empowerment of Women, and it is Spew in history, and it was one of the earliest British women's organizations. It was established in 1859 to promote training and the ability for women to get employment. So, and it still exists today. It's a different name now. They've changed it a couple different times in like the early 1900s. So the name itself is taken from a feminist movement in Britain, which is cool, which probably makes what we're about to talk about worse. But I did want to point out that fun fact before we dove into the problematicness of Spew in the wizarding world. So there you go.
You know, I would love to end this book strongly. So maybe let's
go through the whole arc of Spew. Let's just get
let's just get that done with. Okay, so I do want to preface beforehand that I know Andy said this very well. What we were about to talk about, Spew, is incredibly problematic, is incredibly hurtful, and I understand. And honestly, in moments it's racist. So I totally understand if you want to scoot along past this part,
Yeah, just,
for a
you
little
know.
bit, I understand.
Yeah,
This is not fun. We are not excited to talk about this. We are frustrated to talk about this. And if you have only watched the movies, they conveniently leave it all out.
Yeah, which is great. And we are only able to talk
sure.
about Spew from the perspective of two white women. So we're also not going to be diving super deep into things that we cannot personally attest to. Here we go. With Spew.
Just wanted to say that to make sure if this is triggering for people, I get it. Yeah. I am not offended.
Skip ahead, forget it exists.
Skip ahead.
Yeah,
if you'd
for
like.
a little bit. It starts off, the idea of Hermione being an activist does not bother me.
Yes.
That's really cool.
No. That
it's
makes
really cool.
Perfect sense.
That she's trying to be an activist. It does lean itself towards being the white savior story, which is a common thing you can see in film, literature. A lot of different stories have this like white savior character who comes in and is the one that helps with a racist problem or is the voice for a marginalized community, which is problematic in itself. It exists a lot. This was written before a lot of people were exposed to how problematic this was.
And
but that's not the thing that angers me.
Right. We still haven't like weeded out this white savior thing.
Yeah.
We're still in the process of trying to get rid of that.
Yeah. It's still a problem. It's still frustrating. It's the treatment of what the elves are in this world that becomes extremely angering.
Yeah. And it's a little weird too, because they are specifically house elves, which opens the can of worms of, are there other elves out there that aren't house elves? Have they taken a specific demographic of elf and bred them into house elves? Because there are no, as we learned, there are no free house elves. They are essentially bred to work and their families continue to work for the same family forever. Now, something that, since we were talking a little more vaguely about the background of this, something that I find very frustrating, curious, I don't know, is in this book, she constantly brings up the fact that there is nothing on house elves. She's read all these things. She's read Hogwarts history, and house elves are not mentioned. Now, I do believe that she's read all the books and learned all the things. But so we find out in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, the written book, not the movie, that they had a meeting. The Ministry of Magic had a meeting to define what was a people and what was a magical creature. So there was this whole thing with mer people and goblins and centaurs who were all asked to come speak, and mer people were like, we will handle ourselves. Centaurs never showed up. They were like, not about that life. Keeping that in mind, she chose to make the history where she is defining people, what people mean, which that doesn't bother me as much in this world of fantasy where there are creatures and they're trying to define that and help make peace and everything. She conveniently leaves out house elves of that, which, you know, in comparison to Thestrals, who are beautiful winged creatures who cannot speak and they're very animalistic. House elves are right up there with
and
goblins
have magic,
and
they have really strong magic.
They're right
the
up there with
intelligence
all
to
those.
use it.
So why were they not mentioned? That's super weird. Just don't know if someone realized their mistake and it was too late. Or if they were just glossing over that or simply forgot. Either way, that is rough town. So I just did want to mention that because it's very interesting that they...
It feels like because they weren't invited into that we're supposed to categorize them as like a working animal, for lack of a better term, in our world.
Even though they're on the fountain. In the Ministry. In the Ministry, they have a goblin, a centaur, and a house elf. So working together. Of course, before Voldemort comes and makes it terrifying. You know, it's just like some of these things, I'm like, you are not helping yourself.
No, it just makes it worse because it wasn't thought through. And if you're going to do this type of arc, you need it to be specific and thought through.
Because Hermione would have read all that.
Yeah.
Hermione would have known all that, and it would have made her more upset that they're not mentioned in anything.
Yeah.
Which just catapults her into this whole just snowball effect of spew.
Yeah.
Of trying to help them. And then it gets more problematic because they don't want help.
This is where, like, she makes it really fuzzy she humanizes the house elves in a way that is trying to make them a marginalized community, where Dobby is a leader of it and Hermione is trying to help. But then the way she talks about the elves themselves and then everyone else around her, including Hagrid, which was a big deal to me, because he's someone who truly cares about magical creatures. And if he believed there was injustice, I know he would be upset too.
Oh, for sure.
For him to deny that the spew badge that she makes, because she makes a manifesto, she makes a board, like, it's impressive.
Yeah. She goes all out.
Yeah. So it's set up to be a really cool, like, trying her way into activism thing. But she says things like, that's because they are uneducated and brainwashed. She says things that are really, really problematic about the people. And she doesn't go to talk to them at all.
No, and when she does, she puts words into their mouths.
Exactly.
When she talks to Winky, I would love to just like get Spew out of the way. I know Spew comes back in later books.
Yes.
And for all of those listening, for anyone, I would love for just us to like talk about it all regardless of book and just be done with it. So we don't have to keep talking about it.
And the other books don't get really mad at her too. So
it's just, let's just like get it over with. In later books, she goes when she finally does talk to them and like talking to Winky a couple of times and hearing about what she's like. Literally, the sweet house elves of Hogwarts kick her out of the cafeteria or the kitchens rather, because she is just forcing words into Winky's mouth, which is making Winky more upset. And that whole scenario is just frustrating because she's like, well, see, Dobby, he needs to do this. Wait, you don't want more money? What the heck? Winky is crying harder. She's like, I would be disgraced. I am not, and it just, that whole conversation, it goes back to that her like not really reading the room. Kind of thing, which just makes Spew in that moment even more uncomfortable because the elves are totally happy being slaves.
Yeah. Well, that's and Dumbledore is so open to hiring, and like he does. There's no resistance at all.
No.
So it's problematic in a lot of different ways. Where the elves themselves, if you're painting them as a marginalized community, you have everyone but Dobby that we meet is super okay with the situation, which is not, it's problematic in itself. So you're also having a marginalized community who is being called uneducated. But if it is a hierarchy that only one person is upset with that we meet, it feels like a more fantastical, non-human, like it shouldn't be humanized as if it is like a very specific magical thing. So
it's a magical creature.
Yeah. And she's not trying to help them. She's not asking them what they want. She's not making sure that their working conditions.
No,
like, she's not unionizing them.
No, she's applying what she thinks they should have to them.
Yeah. So that's when it gets super. You're not writing a activist story. You're writing someone forcing activism into a situation where no one asked for her help. Like, it's just so.
It's like two sides to this like really uncomfortable coin.
Yeah.
Because then later you have all of the elves like fighting in the war.
Yeah.
For their captors.
Yeah.
And I think it's supposed to make you feel better that like Dobby was treated horribly.
Yes, and he needed to get out. There should have been a system in place. Yeah.
Right. Winky was not treated horribly. Winky seems to be she seems to have been taken care of quite well.
Yeah.
So it's understandable that she is upset that she leaves this home that she truly was her home.
Yeah.
And the elves at Hogwarts, we know nothing but that they are comfortable there and treated well. I think that's supposed to make you feel a little better about forced slavery, but I don't know if it does. I don't think that aged well. I don't.
Yeah, it's just because it's not. You're not treating a marginalized community who either you're making them so brainwashed, quote unquote, that they're totally happy where they are, or you're making it a fantastical thing where like their purpose is that and that's what they're happy to do, and you just have one who breaks free. Like, it's so weird. It's so weird because it's not written in a way where you can even discuss that they want different things. It's just so weird, and it's not done
just so
well.
one-sided from Hermione, which is why we only get what we are telling you, because it's just from her side. She's the only one who wants it. More of her not reading the room. She does forcibly put pins on people. She makes people sign up. She gets super weird about it. Even it says too that even when people are interested in what she is saying, she derails it and scares them off.
Yeah. So why are you having her so bad at it if you're trying to also make it a part of, like, it's
right. It's bizarre to me.
Yeah.
How terrible she is at it, especially knowing where she ends up in the world.
Yes.
It just, like you said, the activism, right on.
Yeah.
How she's doing it. Why?
It's so, and maybe if she had taken the time to actually go talk to people about how they're treated and realize Dobby's the only one that, because it is like Dobby's situation was horrible.
Yeah.
If I was looking
and you
at
love
it,
that he got out of that.
Yeah.
You love that for him.
If I was
that was not problematic
it,
at all. His abuse, obviously, do not condone that. But I think his behavior of getting out was really great, and you feel for him, and that's why Dobby is such a strong character, as opposed to some of these other house elves that we meet.
Yeah.
Are very, like, Winky is very problematic. Others,
a
lot of very problematic moments. But yeah, I wish we could shed bright, like, more positive light on Dispute, but I don't think we can. I think it is truly.
No. It could have been a positive active. I mean, it still would have been a white savior story. Like, that's
for sure.
There's no way to not make it that. But it could have been where the house elves were like, okay, if she went and talked to them, and they're like, you know what, these are some things we'd like to have a day off or something, and then you could have had Dumbledore and, like, the Hogwarts be a positive change in the world, you know, like, and work towards that.
Or why would why was it
this horribly problematic? And she says all these horrible things about them, and I just it's like you're making it about you. You're making this whole thing about you. And it makes me not like her. Like, and she was taking so many good steps. You know, she was getting to that point of, like, becoming more of a rounded character and having some empathy for her friends. And then this hits, and it's written, I think the author was trying to make her a really good forefront fighting against a lot of adversity. And it just made her really, really unlikable.
Yeah. To me. And it's super uncomfortable. So I'm very glad they cut that from the movies, because it's... I think that was a good choice.
And in the next few books, she's, like, knitting sweaters and trying to trick them into getting freed.
That's terrible.
It's so horrible.
They literally stop cleaning the Gryffindor Tower because she keeps leaving stuff around.
You're now trying to trick them into, like, it's just so bad.
Trick them out of it's just
out of their job. Like, I don't
just without talking to them, like you said.
Yeah, like she just doesn't care what they think. It's all about what she believes is right without any concern of what this actual community wants.
Right.
And it's really problematic and very frustrating. And that's kind of where it ends, where, like, Dobby is the only one cleaning the Gryffindor Tower and has all the sweaters and hats and takes them, so she thinks it's working. And then we come to find out that she's made Dobby's life harder by being the only one to clean the entire Gryffindor room.
And it's never resolved. She never drops it. Yep. She never talks about it again after, like, you know, because more important things happen. Yeah. But it just seemed strange. And I don't know if this was look at how active she is. Like, she's going to go into the ministry. Yeah. But it just felt like she did it so poorly. Yeah. She did it so poorly. I just didn't understand.
So it's all problematic.
Yeah. The whole thing could have just not been there.
Yeah, it didn't need to happen. Like, why even put it in?
Why
at
do
that point?
Why
not make it Muggle rights? Something she actually is a part of.
There would have been so many things that they could have done. Yeah, where she could have been an activist. Yeah. Why was she in any of these extracurricular school activities that we find out that the school had? Yeah. Yeah. There were all sorts of different clubs and things that she could have been a part of to fulfill that side of her instead of a very uncomfortable, tinged with racism conversation that continued uncomfortably throughout the books.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And that she couldn't resolve because she written herself into a horrible corner. Like, yep. So that's they had Spew.
Yeah. Ooh. However, just to put the icing on the Spew cake.
Yeah.
Something that is different in the movies that happens in the books. So in the movies, when Hermione and Ron kiss, it is down in the Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah.
Now, Spew is another thing because Ron is from an old wizarding family. He's like, no, this is just like how it is.
Yeah.
Like, Mom would love a house elf. You know, which is its own problem in and of itself.
Yep.
But it's that reminder that Ron is still has a heart.
Yeah.
He's not, where when they, in the books, they have gone down to the Chamber of Secrets. Ron has gotten them in. They have bags full of fangs. So they're ready to get the Horcruxes. And it's been this moment of like Ron's idea and Hermione's thrilled. And they're already riding that high of like, okay, we have a solution.
Yeah.
We have a solution to this problem. And then, oh my gosh, the battle's about to start. And Ron says, which I think makes this kiss very satisfying for both of them.
Yeah.
Ron says, well, what about the house elves? We have to tell them too.
Yeah.
They're in the kitchens. They won't know. Because Ron's not for...
Yeah. But he still cares about the creatures.
He still cares about them. So, and I think that him caring for her, I think it was a lot more than what he realized he was saying, which like makes it very Ron.
Yeah.
But in that moment, she drops all the fangs she's holding, throws her arms around him and kisses him.
Yeah.
Because she is so thrilled that he also cares. Because that was never a question, but she never asked.
Yeah.
But just for a sweet end to a nasty tasting cake, it is very...
and it motivates that kiss in the middle of it. Like, it really like pushes that. And
it's so satisfying.
Yeah, it is.
When in the books, you're just like, yes, this is what gets them together after all of this like casual bickering and these little moments that maybe, not maybe, it's not the right moment.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it's very funny with third wheel Harry being like, guys, not the time. Yeah, that is a very satisfying moment that I do appreciate.
Yeah.
That probably still could have happened without Spew. And
Yeah. Even if she had just cared, like, oh my gosh, we have all these house elves in Hogwarts. Like, that's never knew. Yeah.
Yeah. Just there's so many things. Yeah. But yeah, so I apologize to everyone about just that conversation. We felt that, and I talked about this, and we felt that we really needed to talk about it because we're not going to shy away from characters and their motivations, and we wanted to give you all of Hermione, the positives and the negatives. Guys, we made it.
We did. We made it through. If you're rewound, welcome back, or if you fast forwarded, welcome here.
Welcome here. So welcome back. We will now dive into, let's see, what do we want to talk about next?
Beauxbaton? In this, are we going to get angry again?
We could do like a little short, little angry.
Yeah. Because we talked about this a lot with Fleur, and
it gets more important later.
Yeah,
not important, but it gets more frustrating later.
Yeah.
She does instantly hate Fleur before we even find out it's Fleur.
Yeah,
she's like, go home.
Yeah, and the hate towards, she automatically disses Beauxbaton a lot in it, and it does. What makes me more angry about it is knowing that she went to France. Like, she's been to France as a vacation. So she actually probably maybe picked up a couple phrases in French, and maybe she could have like actually befriended this group of people who sat with the Ravenclaws, which makes you feel like they have more of a higher book learning feeling to them, which is, what it just is presented as. Like, I feel like she could have befriended a couple people in France, and it would have been cool. And the whole point is to meet people.
Right. But she's so bad at people. And that was really strange. She doesn't make a whole lot of comments about Fleur after that in this book particularly, but it seemed kind of odd, especially since she had read all about the Triwizard Tournaments in the past and knew everything that happened. Because Hogwarts history, like, how big is this darn book? I just have so many questions.
Yeah, it's got to be like the amount of subjects that this covers is ridiculous.
It volumes? Is it an encyclopedia?
Yeah.
Like, I have so many questions.
Yep.
That's just, I don't know, girl. I don't know why you're suddenly mad at them. But on a sweet note, I do appreciate that when everybody is drooling over Cedric.
Yeah.
She's like, she admires him for how good of a student he is, and that he's a prefect. Like, that's what she's like, wow, I am in
priorities.
And that felt very Hermione.
Yeah, it did.
You know,
It did.
I was like, okay, this is a cute, sweet moment.
Yeah.
I get it, girl.
Yeah. I did enjoy that. I like that she was really happy that Angelina put her name in.
Yeah.
That was really cool because it would have been cool for her Angelina to be in it. She does get hit with the ricochet jinx after another mudblood fight and gets her teeth permanently shrunk.
Yes. And this is where Hermione is a little frustrating part about her that we talked about a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not, it doesn't make me angry by any means, but it is a little bit like, It seems like Hermione picks and chooses when she wants to feel feminine.
Yes, that's true.
But not in a way that feels organic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like she's trying, it doesn't feel like she's exploring herself or like trying to see where she fits in. Mm-hmm. It just feels like some moments she's going to be prettier. Yep. And it just, I don't know how I feel about that. But like, that was one of those moments where her parents are dentists and first of all, how have they not done anything about her teeth to begin with? Yeah. But then she suddenly cares what their teeth look like. So she lets Madame Pomfrey shrink them past what her teeth actually are. Because her front teeth are supposed to be a little bigger. And she shrinks them down to normal. Which I wouldn't mind at all if Hermione wasn't so weird about everybody else being pretty.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it would feel very... You could connect to that, like as you're growing up being a teenager, like, oh my gosh, if you have an opportunity to fix like an aspect with magic, like go for it.
Right. You have the insecurities. Yeah. You can kind of get rid of that or you live with that. You see something that's really sweet is that Ron didn't even notice.
Yeah, that was really cute.
You know, like Harry's the first to notice. Yeah. You know, Ron just like sees her and is, you know, not as aware. That didn't affect how he saw her at all. Yeah. Yeah. It just, especially since she gets so weird about how pretty girls are.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's some like high school hate written into her character.
Yeah. Which like, I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Yeah. But you know, whatever. We do have a couple of moments of like her going to like be Hermione and like be unthoughtful in her word choices to Harry and Ron being like giving her a look and being like, this is not the moment. Let him. Yep. Yep. And vice versa of her shooting Ron a look to not say anything about Hagrid's hair. Yeah. You're kind of seeing that kind of like that buildup of their friendship where they are now at the point where they can just look at each other and be like, this is what I'm thinking. Stop. Yeah. Yep. And this is also kind of fun.
Yeah. And this is the book where we talked a little bit earlier about how they get to the point where friends fight and someone becomes a mediator to the group constantly. And this is where Ron and Harry get in kind of a row about him being in the tournament. And so she plays the mediator to this fight multiple times. Yes. And I do enjoy in the movie the like where she's going back and forth, like you tell him and you tell her. It's a very like funny and fun.
That was endearing and felt very like Ron would set that up. Yes. And Hermione would begrudgingly. Yes. Like that felt very organic, even though it wasn't in the books. Like that felt right.
Yeah. Because that kind of stuff is what's kind of happening. Because she does tell Harry, like, Ron told me to tell you the blah, 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 and then the dragon. Yeah. Like, that didn't happen, but how they did it in the movie capsulated a lot of what she had to do. Because she's on Harry's side from the beginning. She's the one person who from the beginning is like, you couldn't possibly have gotten through Dumbledore's magic. So I know you're not lying to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I do like that a lot. I love that she is so helpful of him. You do see a little bit of like her not having really other friends, but them and her Hagrid, because like when they're angry at each other, we see Ron hanging out with the other boys from their grade and things. But it does make for some really sweet moments of Hermione and Harry staying in, like, McGonagall has to give them an office because she's so sick of just like finding them everywhere.
Yeah, that's so sweet.
She's like, and it's both of them together learning spells that are well above their level, trying to figure them out, and neither of them being teachers themselves. I think that was really cool. And something that I enjoyed is throughout all of that, it was entirely platonic.
Yes. Yes.
And in this book, you can see where Hermione starts to have those moments with Ron, where she gets very jealous when Ron looks at Fleur too long, even though everybody's gaping at Fleur.
Yeah, because, magic.
Right, it's out of her control.
Yeah.
Like she gets very jealous of Ron in moments. And with all of this time she spends with Harry, it never feels like she wants to try something or like she's hoping for anything. It's truly, this is a mission. She's working on it. She wants to keep Harry alive. Does she remain naggy and is like, why aren't you doing all these things?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she's still herself, but she is trying to be a really good coach. She's trying to be a coach for Harry in this really troubling time.
Right. And we do find out in later books that she's not that great of a teacher.
No.
So for her to go out on this limb and find these spells and do the research to look everything up to try to help him as much as she can is very cool. And remember, she still has the maximum number of classes you can take.
Yep.
Without doubling up.
Yep.
Right now. Like she still has a higher workload than either of the boys.
Yep. It's impressive what she gets done.
Get it, girl.
Know? Yeah.
Get it. And I do appreciate that.
And then we start to get Crumb, she mentions of him. She says he's not even good looking, things to
right.
when the girls are giggling about him. She kind of scoffs at all the girls having that crush on Crumb. And then you start seeing Ron's jealousy with him. And I love that
because Ron, her and they're both starting to feel things for each other, but I don't even know if they totally realize it. I think Hermione is okay, I think I could date Ron. And I think Ron's why does Hermione feel different to me?
Yeah. Well, you have that hey, you're a girl. Before her big blow up at him, it's yes, thank you for noticing, sir. And that feels very teenagery. That just feels it's a good little spats that happen. And
yeah, I'm not upset with Ron in these moments because I truly think he's trying to figure out his feelings because we do find out later that he is the last person to be with anybody.
Yeah.
He is just sweet old Ron living his life. He's not that's not something he's thinking about. So that made sense to me. Her being upset with him because she, I think, knows her feelings for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it does make sense when we hear later that she talked to Ginny about Harry.
Yeah.
And I know this isn't until later, but I bring this up now because did she accept Crumb because she was taking her own advice?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
And not that Crumb's bad. I think Crumb and her work really well together. I love that she starts out being I hate that he's in the library all the time because people follow him around. It's super annoying.
Yeah. It's really the Crumb,
it's very endearing. They work together.
The Crumb relationship is very sweet. The only issue I had was that why make him 18, make him 17? Because then you get the legal thing because she's 14 in this book.
Well, it's still illegal. Even if he's 17, because in Wizarding World, 17 is
an adult. Yeah. So yeah, that's the only thing that when you start looking at the ages, it feels a little odd just because that 14 to 18 is a very big difference.
Especially when he is already in the adult world, if that makes sense.
Yes.
He is a professional Quidditch player.
Yeah.
So he already has just life experience.
Yeah.
That she doesn't have, Yeah.
And I appreciate the maturity of him.
Oh, for sure.
And I love get it that you get the most sought after person at the I love that for her.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I love that they connect.
Yeah.
Something too in the movies that I was okay with is she talks about, he's a very physical being and whatever.
Yeah.
And that's not the case in the books.
No.
He loves just talking to a normal girl.
It's just
and
so
that's
nice.
truly
Hermione
is truly, when you think, I brought this up a few times, outside of her experiences at Hogwarts, she's a regular girl.
Yeah.
She doesn't have the crazy backstories that some of these other characters have. She is just a girl who likes learning things. And I think that is so charming and relaxing to Crumb, that she is not all over him.
Yeah.
That she truly doesn't, she's not in that. She's not in awe of him. She likes him for him.
Yeah.
And very clearly he likes her more than she likes him.
Well, yeah. And I remember rereading the books as an adult. And I remember calling you after reading book 4 and be like, why is she treating Crumb like shit? Like, why is she not like being nicer to this person who's clearly nice to her and really likes her for her? And I was just so upset that Crumb like gets the short end of her stick, because after the second thing, she completely ignores him after he saved her from the water, and I'm like.
She goes over to Hermione or
Harry.
She goes over to Harry and is like, "Oh my gosh, you did it." Yeah, poor Crumb. Yeah, that I was a little bummed about, because even if you are still fighting those feelings for Ron, which I get it. I get it, girl. Like, that's tough. Enjoy him
a little bit.
He's so sweet, and he seems very caring.
Yeah.
Obviously, they snogged at some point because
it's mentioned.
Ginny says it. But like, I don't know. It just he seemed like really, really good for her, and I don't understand. This just seems to be a rolling theory, or not theory, of a continuous trope of this series of, we just need to get rid of this person.
Yeah, that's like, it. Didn't feel like he would have left that quickly, because they were pen pals. Like, he wanted her to come visit in the summer,
right.
They seemed to have a really good time at the party. Like,
They just like fell apart. I don't know. The only organic breakup in this entire series is Ginny and Dean.
Yeah,
to me, that is the only organic breakup that I see, because like everything else seems like, oh shoot, they work really well together. Darn it. We need to get rid of them so they can end up with their OTPs. Like, So yeah, but that is really endearing. I do enjoy their relationship. I love that she has a blast at the ball. Yeah. I don't like that at the movie it ends where she's like crying on the stairs by herself. Yeah, because she says goodnight to Crumb, and then the screaming match happens in the common room. Yes. Rather than in the middle of the hall. Yeah. Right. She's still like has like the whole night is still beautiful for her. Yeah. It wasn't like cut short because of it, you know? Yeah. So that was kind of a bummer. I also, and this is another one of those moments where I don't know what the directors were thinking of book 4 or not thinking, or the writers, because Hermione goes back and forth with like, I don't like girls who are really pretty, but then like I want to be really pretty sometimes, but like I don't like it. But like, yes, that kind of bit, it confused me that they put her in a pink dress. It was so feminine, because the periwinkle was just like very Cinderella-y, and maybe that's why they didn't want to do it, but like I feel like it was perfect for her. Like I really because it still was like, it was like feminine, and still, because this is a big moment for her. It is a ball. Who doesn't want to look beautiful? Yeah. When you go to the Yule Ball. But it did feel strange. Like the blue worked for her because it's still like a strong color. Yeah. It makes sense for her. So I don't know if they wanted to really go the opposite. That. And put her in pink. It still works. I think it's still a pretty dress. Oh, very much. To it. Very feminine. It works for her really well. But I wonder why you went with pink instead of the blue, because the blue reads more Hermione to me. Yeah. And I always like a good glow up entrance. Like, who doesn't like the rom-com for sure transformation moment? I wish Parvati, and we talked about this in Students, I wish her roommates were part of it. It makes me sad that she like escaped and did it by herself for the reveal. Like, I get that it's cool that they don't know either, but it would have been cool if she had a bonding moment. We don't get that in the books of her Parvati being excited about it. Like, I do love that moment in the movies where Parvati notices and goes, oh my gosh, she's beautiful. Yeah. And I'm like, yes, Parvati. And that read very organic. Like, she totally would say that. Yeah. And be shocked because she hasn't seen her. It is fun. And you appreciate Hermione more. Not just the boys and people are saying it. It's like Parvati also. Yes. Who lives with her and sees her every day. Yeah. It's like, means oh my gosh. Yeah. She's stunning. Yeah. I did like that Neville asked her to the ball at some point. I thought that was It made so much sense. Yeah. Because he's comfortable with her. Yeah. It felt very like, it didn't feel like maybe I have a big crush on you. It felt very like, she's nice to me. Yeah. She's someone that I trust to not make me feel embarrassed all night. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, I like that a lot, and I like that she has had that impact on him. Yes. And not realizing it, but I do like that for her. Yeah. I love that we see a little bit, just a touch of like her and Ginny's friendship, where we see them where they like are casually chatting. We see them at breakfast together. We see them walking to the pitch together. We see them, doing little things together and them talking about each other as if they do have conversations. So we do have a little bit of, at bare minimum, an acquaintance happening, which is nice because we just don't see her with anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And we get that. We know that they're talking about things that she wouldn't be comfortable talking about to Harry and Ron because she tells Jenny about Crumb asking her out. Like I think that's cool that she has someone else to go to because we have noticed how little friends she has maintained at the school. So it is nice that she has someone else that she, has gotten to know.
It seems like she loses her a little bit because, Jenny and Luna are BFFs, but
but she has someone. She has someone to go to talk about those kinds of things, and that makes me happy for her.
I know she needs that.
She does. We do get the beginnings of the full Rita rivalry in this because she tries to make she starts the hatred with all the articles that Rita is writing. Obviously, doesn't really pay too much mind to the gossip column, which is kind of nice that she's strong enough in herself about that. She does try to make Hagrid look really good when Rita comes to visit, and I appreciate that she tries to make his class look really great.
There's a lot of really sweet moments with her and Hagrid.
Yeah.
But she does try to make him look good so that Rita can't say anything nasty about him. It does not work, but.
No. But she tries.
She tries.
Yes, she tries. Then she, creates a nemesis by calling her horrible to her face. And then I do enjoy that she throws off all of the articles that Rita starts writing about her and Harry. And that Crumb is really concerned about it for a hot second.
Yeah. To the point where he asks Harry, he's like, "Are you sure? I just really want to make sure." Which says a lot about his character too.
It does. I love that
he
for
respects
him.
Harry enough to ask him.
Yeah, I love that. Doesn't want to get involved in something that's complicated like that. It's really sweet.
Hermione, why didn't you just enjoy this sweet boy for a year or two?
For the summer. Have a summer fling and then it falls apart because of long distance.
Yes. Yeah. Why were we weird for so long? Because she kept writing him in the next year for a little bit.
And then he shows up in the book 7 randomly at the wedding. So that's
it's come on. Yeah. What are we doing? What are we doing? But yes. Anyway, the rivalry with Rita Skeeter. So in the movies they do, at first watching it, I was like, this is annoying. But at the same time, they have to fit so much into one movie.
Oh yeah.
So in the end, I do not mind at all that to help push these narratives and to cut that down a little bit, her running into the tent and hugging him and Rita snapping the picture and doing that made total sense.
Yes.
So they got everything they needed in that one moment. And her victory in the end is
problematic.
Let's chat about that. Because at first when you're reading as a kid, as a kid, you're like, "Oh, it's a bug. We'll put it in a little jar with poke holes in it. It'll be fine."
Justice.
And then you're as an adult, you're like, "That is a whole ass human.
Yeah.
That is a whole adult. You just committed a felony."
And it gets so much worse because it's she captures her, it takes her away from Hogwarts on the Express, and it's a week before she releases her. So full on kidnaps a human.
In
bug form, and then continues to blackmail her into unemployment. So what starts oh yeah, she got her justice, Rita should be taken down a little bit, but then when you're right, when I read it as an adult, I went, ooh, she's a gossip columnist, it's not, she's writing a lot of rumors, but that's her job. I don't I don't know,
especially from someone who's very don't let this affect.
Yeah. Blackmailing to not write lies about Harry or something.
Or Hagrid. Or outing secrets, I guess.
Yeah. Really she should have turned her in, but I understand it could have been Azkaban is the worst thing that could have happened from that. So I understand not wanting her to go to that fate. But blackmailing to protect friends, I could have accepted as justice for her. But the full not writing anymore for the Daily Prophet, as we learn later, is really rough.
Yikes. Yeah.
I did have one.
And I don't think she understood. what she was doing.
No.
Because she's so young. I don't think she understood that Rita needed money. It didn't
feel like she was malicious during it. It was just that it was very
she just doesn't know. she's a child. She's 14.
Yeah.
Anyway, what were you
I
saying?
have one question mark for, and this could just be, this is for like the wizarding world as a whole, but specifically with her, 'cause she's a muggle. So they're trying so hard to find out how to breathe underwater for an hour, right?
Yes.
Does scuba gear not exist? Could he have not gotten a scuba tank? They both live in the muggle world and it's modern day. Like, how could they have just like used muggle technology as like a really cool way to bring it in and just had scuba gear and been the safest of everyone in the entire thing?
Who knows?
That really bothered
until the
me.
Grindelwalds pull your tank off. But
Well, you know, but yeah.
what the heck? What are we doing?
Yeah.
That is an excellent point.
It should have been an option. It should have been like, if you don't find, I don't know if the rules like you have to use magic, like you can't bring anything but your wand. Maybe I could get on board with that. But like the fact
even
that it
then,
wasn't,
they could do another Accio thing.
Because he brought his broom, so it's a scuba tank. Like they know about it. They know it exists. It would have been
he
really
ate
cool.
gillyweed right before he jumped in. Like,
it just
could bring things. Yeah, that is an excellent point.
That really bothered me. This read through, I went, wait a minute, we go underwater all the time.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, so that was my one note of like their muggle knowledge could have been an advantage in this moment, and it didn't happen. So that was my
just kidding.
My funny book 4 thought.
Yes. No, I like it. I like it a lot. I do. Book 4, there is a little bit, just another Ron thing.
Yeah.
You do see them because they bicker like an old married couple. They truly do. And you're seeing them start to like fall into that pattern of sometimes they outright don't speak to each other, and other times they just like pretend they're not fighting. Yeah. Even though they are, but they like pretend they're not.
Yeah.
Like, which is very funny to me. I think it's very endearing and feels like just an old married couple of the choices they make of like when to bicker, when not to bicker.
Yes.
There's a really sweet line in Deathly Hallows Part 1 where she's like, I'm always mad at him. Yeah. 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 So I'm like, yeah, it's that the beginnings of that relationship where their relationship is one of those where like the tensions are high so that the ending is satisfying, if that makes sense. They have these tensions to come together.
I do appreciate that it's built in. Like in the books, you just feel that relationship be a little bit more organic because of those little interactions that you start. In the movies, it kind of comes out of like all of a sudden it's happening because you can only fit so much. Like I get it. Like these are much bigger books that they're squishing into a couple hours. But in the books, I do think they built in that relationship much more organically, which I appreciate.
Yes.
I think that's all I got for book 4. We got blackmailing and kidnapping. We have problematic elf stuff. We have it's, a lot happens in this book. So thank you for bearing with us through book 4.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Justice for Crumb. I mean, what?
Yeah, right? I remember calling you after finishing the book. I'm like, why is she not with this Crumb for a little bit? Like, why?
Yeah. Because also, I get that it's not as important, but it's like kind of vague about are they dating? Are they not dating? For like a lot of characters, except for Ginny. Yeah. Because reasons, whatever. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. No, this is like the start of some big stuff. Yeah. So I guess we should probably move on to book 5, but we've now been talking for quite some time.
So we're going to have to pull a Deathly Hallows and part one and give you a part 2 for Hermione, because I don't want to cut her short. She is the lead heroine of this series. So
we get into some good stuff later. Yeah, so I want to do it justice. We both want to do it justice. Yeah. So here ends.
Thus ended part 1. Thank you all for joining us for this episode. You get a nice bonus episode next week because we talk so much about Hermione. So join us for our actual final episode next week for part 2.
See you then. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Damsels in Dialogue. We had so much to talk about with our final witch that one episode just wasn't enough. So tune in next week as we wrap up season 2 with our discussion about the one and only Hermione Granger.
If you enjoyed listening today, we'd love to have you subscribe to this podcast and share with friends.
If you really enjoyed our discussion, you can find more behind-the-scenes content, a peek at our research notes, and even entire bonus episodes on Patreon. Each month, we release a full after-hours episode where we will discuss each movie adaptation, and don't hold back.
You can reach us on social media. Links to all our platforms can be found in our About section. Until next time, this has been Damsels in Dialogue.
Have a nice day.
And fuck TERFs.
This podcast episode is sponsored by Hazel Society, a shop that creates magical apparel. You can find them at Hazel Society Shop on Instagram. Damsels in Dialogue is produced by Hello Out There Audio, part of Hello Out There Productions.